There are nights when tension lives in your shoulders like a weight you cannot name. Nights when peace feels like something you once knew but can no longer find. These contemplative stories, drawn from Buddhist wisdom across many centuries and cultures, are offered as gentle companionship for rest and reflection, not as medical or therapeutic advice. Tonight, we explore the art of melting, of softening, of letting the hardness inside us dissolve into something warmer, like ice becoming water, like fists slowly opening, like muscles that have held tight for so long they've forgotten how to let go. If you find these stories helpful, a gentle like or subscribe helps others discover this sanctuary of rest. If thoughts wander or sleep arrives halfway through a story, that is exactly as it should be. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to stay awake. The wisdom we'll encounter tonight comes from Japanese temples and Korean mountain hermitages, from Vietnamese monasteries and Tibetan valleys, from ancient texts and forgotten teachers who understood something essential, that peace is not something we achieve through effort, but something we allow through softening. Find your most comfortable position. Feel the surface beneath you receiving your weight. Notice your next breath, and the one after that. The night is yours. The stories are here. And peace, as we'll discover, has been waiting patiently all along. Let us begin. In the autumn of 1647, in the ancient capital of Kyoto, there lived a woman named Tomoe, whose body had forgotten how to soften. Her jaw remained clenched even in sleep. Her shoulders climbed toward her ears from dawn until darkness. Her hands curled into fists without her noticing, fingers pressing crescents into her palms that remained visible for hours afterward. She was 32 years old, though people often mistook her for older. The lines around her mouth had deepened from years of pressing her lips together, holding back words, swallowing frustration. Her neck ached constantly, a dull throb that had become so familiar she barely registered it anymore, like living near a waterfall and no longer hearing the rush of water. Tomoe managed a prosperous merchant household near the Kamo River, in a district where the morning mist rose from the water and tangled with the smoke from cooking fires. Her husband, Masaru, traveled 9 months of the year, following silk trade routes between Kyoto and Osaka, leaving her to oversee everything. The servants looked to her for direction. The suppliers came to her for payment. The ledgers demanded her attention each evening by candlelight, columns of numbers that seemed to multiply like weeds. She had learned, over the years of Masaru's absence, to present a face of absolute composure to the world. When the head servant burned an expensive bolt of silk, Tomoe's expression remained smooth as still water. When the rice supplier tried to cheat her by delivering inferior grain mixed with the premium variety she had ordered, she caught the deception with calm precision and renegotiated on the spot, her voice level, her hands steady as she poured tea for them both. But inside, when no one could see, everything was clenched tight. Her chest felt bound with invisible rope, her stomach twisted into complicated knots. At night, she lay awake listening to the sound of her own heartbeat, feeling it pulse in her temples, her throat, her fingertips, as though her entire body was a drum being struck too hard, too fast, too constantly. The servants thought her stern but fair. The suppliers respected her shrewdness. The neighbors admired her competence. No one knew that she woke most mornings with her jaw aching so badly she could barely eat rice, that her hands trembled when she was alone, that sometimes in the bath she would look down at her own body and feel startled by how rigid it had become. Muscles hard as temple wood, skin stretched tight over bones that seemed to be pulling inward. collapsing towards some center point of tension. She told herself this was strength. She told herself this vigilance was necessary. After all, a woman managing a household alone could not afford softness. The world tested you constantly, looking for weakness, ready to take advantage of any opening. She had to stay alert, controlled, ready to handle whatever crisis emerged next. And crises emerged constantly. A broken water pipe flooding the storage room. A servant's child falling ill with fever. A letter from Masaru saying he would be delayed another month. A visiting official requiring entertainment at a moment's notice. Each crisis demanded that Tomoe be harder, tighter, more controlled than the last. Her elderly neighbor, a woman named Yuki, had watched this transformation over the years. Yuki lived alone in a modest house 3 doors down. A simple dwelling, surrounded by maple trees that turned spectacular shades of crimson each autumn. She was perhaps 70 years old, though her exact age remained uncertain. Her late husband had been a minor court official. After his death 20 years prior, she had lived quietly, growing vegetables in a small garden, tending her maples, occasionally hosting tea for a few intimate friends. Yuki had no servants, no business to manage, no constant demand on her time. Yet she seemed more fully present than anyone Tomoe had ever met. When you spoke to Yuki, she listened with her entire body, as though nothing in the world mattered more than what you were saying in that moment. Her movements were unhurried but never lazy, complete but never rigid. She walked as though the earth itself was grateful for the gentle pressure of her feet. Tomoe had exchanged pleasantries with Yuki over the years, but had never accepted any of the old woman's invitations to tea. She was always too busy, always rushing toward the next task, the next problem, the next thing requiring her attention. Besides, what would they talk about? Yuki's simple life seemed impossibly distant from Tomoe's complicated existence. But on a particular October morning, after Tomoe had spent the entire night awake, staring at the ceiling beams while her mind churned through an impossible tangle of financial problems and household tensions, something shifted. She had risen before dawn, exhausted but unable to rest, and gone outside to splash cold water on her face from the courtyard well. The morning air carried the scent of chrysanthemums and dying leaves. The sky was that particular shade of grey that comes before sunrise, neither dark nor light, suspended between states. Yuki was already awake, sweeping fallen leaves from her walkway with slow, deliberate strokes. She looked up as Tomo emerged and smiled, not with surprise, but as though she had been expecting her. "Good morning, Tomo-san," Yuki said, her voice soft as the rustling leaves. "Will you join me for tea?" Tomoe opened her mouth to refuse. She had account books waiting. A difficult conversation with the rice supplier was scheduled for mid-morning. 3 letters needed writing before noon. A menu required planning for the following week. But then she looked at Yuki's face. Really looked, perhaps for the first time. And she saw something there that stopped the refusal in her throat. Not pity, which would have made Tomoe defensive. Not curiosity, which would have felt intrusive. Just a gentle, steady regard that seemed to say, "I see you. I see how tired you are. I see how tightly you are holding yourself together. Come rest. Just for a moment." Tomoe heard herself say yes before she quite realized she had decided. Yuki's tea room was smaller than any Tomoe had ever seen. The estates where Masaru's business associates hosted formal tea ceremonies had spacious rooms designed to impress. with expensive hanging scrolls and rare flower arrangements and tea utensils worth more than most people earned in a year. Those ceremonies were performances, displays of wealth and culture and refined taste. This was different. Yuki's tea room measured only 4.5 tatami mats. The walls of plain earth plaster, the color of river stones, aged to a soft patina that seemed to hold generations of quietness within it. A single scroll hung in the alcove, brushwork so simple it was almost invisible. Just a few strokes suggesting wind in bamboo. No expensive ceramics. No elaborate flower arrangement. Just a small branch of maple leaves beginning to turn, placed in a rough pottery vase that looked as though it had been shaped by someone's grandmother's hands. The entrance to the tea room was built deliberately low, forcing anyone who entered to bow deeply. Tomo, accustomed to walking through her home with practiced efficiency, had to stop completely, lower herself, and fold her body almost in half to pass through the doorway. In that moment of bowing, something extraordinary happened. As her head descended and her back curved and her entire body compressed into that shape of profound humility, something in her chest loosened. Just slightly. Just a breath's worth of space opening where before there had been only tightness. She emerged into the tea room and felt disoriented, as though she had entered not just a different space, but a different world entirely. The light here was soft, filtered through paper screens that glowed with the morning sun behind them. The air smelled of tatami and clean earth, and something else. Something she could not quite name. A scent like quietness itself. There were only the two of them. No other guests. No audience. No performance required. Just two women in a small room as the world outside continued its rushing and striving and endless noise. Yuki gestured for Tomoe to sit. Tomoe lowered herself onto the tatami, feeling the firmness of the woven rush beneath her, and arranged her kimono carefully around her knees. She was acutely aware of how her shoulders climbed toward her ears, how her hands wanted to clench in her lap, how even sitting still required tremendous effort, as though relaxation itself had become a skill she had forgotten how to perform. Yuki began to prepare the tea. She moved with a slowness that Tomoe at first found almost unbearable. Each gesture seemed to take an eternity. The folding of the silk cloth used to wipe the tea scoop, the ladling of water from the iron kettle, the dipper lifting and tilting and pouring with such deliberate care that Tomoe could count each drop as it fell. The scooping of powdered tea into the bowl, the whisking, the bamboo whisk moving in steady circles, neither rushed nor delayed, just moving at the pace that movement itself seemed to desire. Tomoe tried to think about the tasks waiting at home. The account books, the supplier, the letters. Her mind kept reaching for them, like hands grasping for something solid in darkness. But Yuki's movements kept drawing her back, pulling her attention into the present moment, despite her resistance. There was something hypnotic in the way the old woman's hands moved. Not grasping, not hurrying, not performing. Just doing each thing completely before beginning the next. Folding the cloth completely before setting it down. Lifting the ladle completely before beginning to pour. Whisking the tea completely before setting the whisk aside. The water in the iron kettle began to simmer. A sound like wind through pine trees. A sound with texture and depth that filled the small room. Steam rose in soft curls, carrying the scent of heat and mineral and something ancient. Outside the window, a maple leaf touched the edge of the roof, its stem finally releasing after months of holding on, and the leaf fell past the paper screen, tumbling in the air like a small prayer of letting go. Yuki finished whisking the tea. The surface of the liquid in the bowl became a uniform pale green, smooth as jade, tiny bubbles catching the light. She lifted the bowl with both hands, turned it twice in a slow rotation, and offered it to Tomoe. Their hands touched briefly as Tomoe received the bowl. Yuki's fingers were warm and rough-textured from years of work, but their touch was so gentle that Tomoe felt tears suddenly threaten behind her eyes, though she did not understand why. The bowl itself was remarkable. Not expensive, not perfectly formed, but beautiful in its simplicity. Rough pottery, the color of river clay, uneven in shape, with a thick glaze that pooled darker in some areas and left others almost bare. It was warm but not hot, heavy but not awkward, textured in a way that made Tomoe's palms suddenly aware of every nerve ending in her skin. She looked down at her own hands holding the bowl and saw, for the first time in months, perhaps years, how tightly she gripped everything. Her fingers pressed against the clay so hard that her knuckles had gone white. She was holding the tea bowl the way she held everything in her life, as though if she loosened her grip even slightly, it would shatter, it would disappear, everything would fall apart. "You hold everything very tightly," Yuki said gently. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the quietness of the tea room it seemed to fill all the available space. Not as criticism, not as judgment, just as simple observation, the way one might note that rain was falling or that birds were singing. Tomoe felt her jaw clench tighter in response. Her shoulders rose another inch. A defensive wall began to build itself inside her, brick by invisible brick. She wanted to explain herself, to justify all the reasons she needed to hold things so tightly, to describe all the responsibilities resting on her shoulders, all the ways the world would take advantage if she showed even a moment's weakness. But Yuki simply waited. Her wrinkled hands rested on her knees, palms up, fingers soft. Her eyes were kind, but not pitying, clear, but not judging. She waited the way water waits, the way stone waits, with a patience that expected nothing and allowed everything. The silence stretched. Tomoe looked down at the tea bowl in her white-knuckled grip. She noticed the way her breathing had become shallow, trapped high in her chest. She noticed the ache in her jaw from clenching. She noticed how much effort it required just to sit here, just to be still, as though stillness itself had become something she had to achieve through force rather than something she could simply allow. "When you hold water too tightly," Yuki said quietly, "it runs through your fingers. When you cup your hands gently, it stays." Something cracked inside Tomoe's chest. Not breaking, but opening. Like ice beginning to melt. Like a door long stuck suddenly, loosening on its hinges. Her vision blurred with tears she had not allowed herself to cry for months. Maybe years. All the tears she had swallowed during difficult negotiations, during lonely nights, during moments of overwhelming exhaustion when she had forced herself to keep going because there was no other choice. She looked at Yuki through her blurred vision and saw the old woman smiling slightly, sadly, knowingly, as though Yuki herself had once held things too tightly, as though she understood from the inside what it cost to finally let the grip loosen. Tomoe took a breath that shuddered in her throat. Then, deliberately, with tremendous effort, she softened her grip on the tea bowl. Just slightly, just enough to let her fingers remember that they could hold without grasping. The bowl did not fall. The tea did not spill. Nothing catastrophic happened. The world did not end because she loosened her hold by a fraction. "Everything you are holding," Yuki said softly. "All that tension, All that tightness. It is not strength. It is fear wearing the mask of strength. Real strength is soft. Like water. Like this tea. Soft, but it nourishes. Soft, but it transforms everything it touches. Tomoe lifted the bowl to her lips and sipped. The tea was bitter and sweet at once, astringent on her tongue but warming in her throat, carrying heat down into her center where everything had been cold and clenched for so long. She took another sip, and another, feeling the warmth spread through her chest, like dawn light spreading across a valley. They sat together in silence. Not the anxious silence of social obligation, where people wait impatiently for the acceptable moment to leave. This was a different kind of silence, thick and nourishing, a silence that asked nothing and gave everything. Outside, the maples rustled in the morning breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell sounded, low and resonant, the tone seeming to vibrate not just in the air but in Tomoe's bones. Her blood, the marrow of her suddenly tired, suddenly heavy, suddenly grateful body. Slowly, so slowly she barely noticed it happening, Tomoe's shoulders began to descend. An inch, 2 inches, settling away from her ears, releasing the constant vigilance that had kept them raised for years. Her jaw unclenched slightly, just enough to let her back teeth separate, just enough to let her tongue rest easy in her mouth instead of pressing hard against her palate. The tightness in her chest loosened another fraction. Not gone, not miraculously healed, but softer, less like armor and more like skin. I thought, Tomoe whispered, her voice rough from disuse, from years of speaking only what was necessary, that if I let go, everything would fall apart. Yuki poured herself a small amount of tea into a second bowl and took a slow sip before responding. And what if, she asked gently, looking at Tomoe with those clear, knowing eyes, everything is already falling apart, all the time, and coming back together, all the time, and your holding tight changes nothing except how much it hurts you to watch. Tomoe sat with this. Outside, another leaf released from its branch, another small letting go in a world full of endless releasing and returning. The steam from Yuki's tea rose and dissipated. The sunlight shifted as clouds moved across the sky. Everything changing, constantly, whether she held tight or softened her grip. She stayed with Yuki for 2 hours that morning, though it felt both like minutes and like a lifetime. They drank tea in silence. They spoke occasionally, brief exchanges about the changing season, about the quality of light, about nothing important, and therefore about everything that mattered. Yuki showed Tomoe how to whisper the tea herself, and Tomoe found a strange peace in the repetitive motion, the circular stirring that required no thought, just presence, just being fully in each stroke of the whisk. When she finally rose to leave, bowing low to exit through the small doorway, Tomoe felt different, lighter, as though she had set down a weight she had carried for so long she had forgotten it was not part of her own body. Her legs felt unsteady beneath her, like a person learning to walk after a long illness. Back home, the account book still waited on her desk. The difficult supplier would still arrive within the hour. The 3 letters still needed writing. Nothing external had changed. All the problems remained precisely where she had left them. But when Tomoe sat at her writing desk and picked up her brush, she noticed something extraordinary. Her hand did not ache as it usually did. The brush moved more smoothly across the paper, the ink flowing without resistance. The characters she formed were more beautiful than they had been in years, each stroke complete and confident, as though her hand had remembered something important about the nature of movement. She had not learned to hold less. The responsibilities were the same, but she had learned to hold differently. Gently, the way Yuki had held the tea bowl, the way water holds what falls into it without grasping, without claiming, without demanding that things be other than they are. When the rice supplier arrived, Tomoe conducted the negotiation from this new place of softness. She noticed, with surprise, that she was more effective, not less. Her mind was clearer. Her words came more easily. The supplier seemed to respond to something different in her presence, becoming less defensive, more willing to find fair solutions. That night, for the first time in months, Tomoe slept deeply. In her sleep, her jaw relaxed completely, falling open slightly. Her shoulders melted away from her ears and settled on the futon beneath her. Her hands, which had been fists for so long they had forgotten any other shape, slowly opened on the pillow beside her head like flowers, remembering they were meant to bloom, like leaves remembering they were meant to soften in rain, like everything that had been held too tightly finally being allowed to rest. In the way of tea, there is a teaching that every practitioner learns early. Each gesture is complete before the next begins. This is not slowness, not laziness, not inefficiency. This is presence. This is the art of being fully in one thing before moving to the next. When we rush from task to task, we carry the tension of the unfinished into everything we touch. We grip life the way Tomoe gripped her tea bowl, white-knuckled, afraid that loosening our hold even slightly will cause everything to slip away. We hold our bodies rigid, thinking this tension is strength, thinking this vigilance will protect us from all the things we fear. But peace does not come from holding tighter. Peace comes from discovering that we can hold gently, that we can let each moment be complete before we reach for the next, that we can trust that what needs to stay will stay without our desperate grasping. Right now, wherever you are lying, notice how you are holding your body. Are your fists clenched beneath the blanket? Is your jaw tight, teeth pressed together? Are your shoulders climbing toward your ears even as you rest? You may not have noticed. We carry tension so long it becomes invisible, becomes the water we swim in, becomes the shape we think we are supposed to be. Feel the weight of your shoulders pressing into the surface beneath you. Soften your hands, just slightly. Let your fingers uncurl. Unlock your jaw, just enough to let your teeth separate, just enough to let your tongue rest easy. Nothing needs to be held right now. The night is holding you. The darkness is holding you. The surface beneath you is holding you. You do not need to hold yourself together. You can soften. Feel your breath moving in and out without effort, without control, without holding. Your body knows how to breathe. Your heart knows how to beat. Life knows how to move through you when you stop gripping it so tightly. When you stop trying to control every single thing, when you finally allow yourself to rest in the certainty that you do not have to do this alone, that you have never had to do this alone. In your own life, you may notice that you approach tasks the way Tomoe once did, gripping the steering wheel too hard while driving, knuckles white, shoulders raised, clenching your teeth while checking emails, jaw tight with anticipation of problems, holding your shoulders rigid while talking to someone difficult, bracing against their words before they even speak, as if the tightness could protect you, as if the tension could control the outcome, as if hardening yourself could somehow make the hard things easier. But the tea ceremony teaches something else entirely. It teaches that we can move through life with gentle hands, that we can do hard things softly, that we can face difficult conversations, challenging tasks, overwhelming days without hardening ourselves against them. That the softening is not weakness, but a different kind of strength entirely. The strength is not in the hardening. The strength is in the softening. Like water, which is soft, but carves through stone over time. Like tea, which is gentle, but transforms everything it touches, warming, nourishing, changing the very chemistry of the body that receives it. You do not need to become a different person to find this peace. You do not need to fix yourself or achieve some distant state of enlightenment. You do not need to attend years of tea ceremony or study with masters or change everything about your life. You simply need to notice how you are holding this moment right now, and then hold it a little more gently. Notice your breath. You do not need to change it. Just notice it. Notice how it moves in and out, how your ribs expand and contract, how your belly rises and falls. You are not doing this. It is being done through you. Life is breathing you. Let it. Let the night hold you now. Let the darkness be soft around you, like Yuki's tea room, like a space made sacred by simple quietness. Let your body remember that it can unclench, that it can soften, that it can rest without vigilance, without guard, without the constant effort of holding yourself together. You are safe enough, right now, to let go. You are held. Breathe in, feeling your ribs expand. Soften as you breathe out, feeling your shoulders drop another inch, feeling your jaw release another fraction, feeling your hands open just a little more. And as that gentle release moves through your body like warm tea spreading through cold hands, as your muscles begin to remember what softness feels like, we travel now to another time and place, where a different kind of holding waits to be explored, where another teacher understood something essential about the nature of peace and the art of gentle living. Take a breath into this moment. Feel the blanket's weight on your legs. Notice the pillow's pressure against your head. Let your eyes close if they have not already, or let them stay soft and unfocused if closing feels too much like effort. Nothing to hold, nowhere to go, no one to be. Just this gentle resting, just this moment of allowing yourself to be held instead of holding. The next story is waiting when you are ready, or if sleep comes first, before the story ends. Let it come. That is exactly right. You are exactly where you should be. You do not need to stay awake. You do not need to hear everything. You can trust that what you need will find you, even in sleep, even in letting go. Rest now. Soften now. Let go. In the highlands of central Vietnam, in a time when the French colonial presence cast long shadows across the land, there lived a young man named Min who worried about everything. He worried about the rice harvest. He worried about his aging parents. He worried about the political tensions spreading through the countryside like smoke from distant fires. He worried about his worries, creating circles within circles of anxiety that spiraled through his mind like water draining from a broken vessel. Min was 24 years old and worked his family's small farm on the edge of a village called Bao Loc, where the mountains met the sky in layers of blue and grey. His father had grown too weak to manage the terraced rice paddies alone, so Min had taken over the daily labor, the planting, the weeding, the careful management of water levels, the constant vigilance against pests and weather, and all the thousand things that could destroy a season's work in a single afternoon. But it was not just the farm that occupied Min's mind. He worried that the French administrators would raise the taxes again, as they had done the previous year, taking so much of the harvest that his family had barely enough to eat. He worried that his younger sister, Lan, would never find a suitable husband because their family had become too poor to offer a decent dowry. He worried that his mother's persistent cough would worsen into something more serious. He worried that the revolutionary ideas spreading among the young men in neighboring villages would bring soldiers and violence to their quiet corner of the world. At night, lying on his sleeping mat while his family breathed softly around him in the darkness, Min's mind raced through endless scenarios of disaster. What if the monsoon rains came too early this year and washed away the young rice plants? What if they came too late and the soil cracked beneath the merciless sun? What if bandits came while he was working in the distant fields? What if his father fell ill and they had no money for medicine? What if his mother noticed the shadows under his eyes? The way his hands trembled slightly when he thought no one was watching. The tightness around his mouth that made him look years older than he was. She said nothing directly, but one morning she suggested that Min might benefit from visiting the small temple on the hillside above the village. The temple was little more than a modest wooden structure with a tin roof, tended by a single monk named Thay Hien. He was perhaps 50 years old, though his exact age remained uncertain, and he had lived in this simple temple for nearly 20 years, growing vegetables in a small garden, maintaining the shrine, and occasionally offering guidance to villagers who sought him out. Min had seen Thay Hien many times over the years, passing him on the mountain paths or glimpsing him in the temple courtyard as he swept leaves or tended his garden. The monk moved with an unhurried grace that Min found both peaceful and slightly irritating, as though Thay Hien existed in a different world where time moved more slowly and problems solved themselves without constant vigilance. But his mother's suggestion carried weight, and Min found himself one morning climbing the steep path to the temple, his legs burning from the effort, his mind already constructing reasons why this visit would be a waste of time. The monk could not make the rains come at the right time. He could not lower the taxes, or cure his mother's cough, or solve any of the actual problems that filled Min's days and haunted his nights. He arrived at the temple to find Thay Hien sitting on the wooden steps, peeling vegetables for his noon meal. The monk looked up, smiled without surprise, and gestured for Min to sit beside him. He handed Min a small knife and a basket of radishes without saying a word. They sat together peeling radishes in silence. Min's hands moved quickly, efficiently, the way he did everything, trying to finish the task as rapidly as possible. Thay Hien's hands moved slowly, deliberately, giving each radish his complete attention, removing the skin in long, unbroken spirals that fell into the basket like white ribbons. After a time, the monk spoke. "You are worried about something." It was not a question. Min felt suddenly defensive, though he could not have said why. "Everyone worries," he said, keeping his eyes on the radish in his hands. "There is much to worry about." "Tell me," Thay Hien said gently, "what are you worried about right now?" In this moment, Min opened his mouth and found that the worries came pouring out like water from a dam that had suddenly cracked. He spoke about the rice crop and the taxes, and his mother's cough and his sister's future, and the political tensions and the what-ifs that consumed his nights. The words tumbled over each other, urgent and overlapping, and he realized as he spoke that he had been holding all of this inside for so long that it had become a physical weight pressing on his chest. Thay Hien listened without interrupting, his hands continuing their slow, steady work with the radishes. When Min finally fell silent, exhausted by his own recitation of fears, the monk set down his knife and looked at him with kind, clear eyes. "How many of these things are happening right now?" he asked. Min blinked, confused. What do you mean? Right now? In this moment? Is the rice crop failing? Are the soldiers coming? Is your mother dying? Are you being forced from your land? No. But, right now, in this moment, are you breathing? Yes. Are your hands working? Are you sitting safely on these steps? Is the sun shining? Are the birds singing in the trees? Min looked around, as though seeing the temple courtyard for the first time. The morning sun filtered through the branches of an ancient banyan tree, creating patterns of light and shadow on the swept earth. A small bird hopped along the edge of the vegetable garden, pecking at insects. The air smelled of wood smoke and jasmine and the distant scent of rain that might come later in the day. Yes, he said quietly. Then why? Thay Hien asked. Are you not here? The question struck Min with unexpected force. He felt suddenly as though he had been living his entire life slightly removed from reality. His mind always racing ahead to anticipate disasters, never fully present in the actual moment unfolding around him. I am trying to prepare, he said, hearing the defensiveness in his own voice. If I think about what might happen, I can be ready. I can protect my family. Thay Hien picked up another radish, examined it thoughtfully. Let me tell you about a farmer I once knew, he said. This farmer was very diligent. Every evening, before sleeping, he would imagine all the things that might go wrong with his crops. He would lie awake, planning for droughts and floods, for locusts and blight, for thieves and storms. He was convinced that this constant preparation made him a better farmer. The monk paused to peel the radish in his characteristic slow spiral. Min waited, feeling his own impatience rise. One day, Thay Hien continued, the farmer was so absorbed in worrying about whether the rains would come that he forgot to notice they had already arrived. The water was flooding his fields while he sat in his house planning what he would do if the drought continued. Min felt heat rise in his cheeks. That is different. I am not that foolish. Are you certain? The monk's voice remained gentle, without judgment. Right now, while you sit here worrying about your mother's cough, are you able to enjoy being with her? While you worry about your sister's future, are you able to appreciate her laughter? While you plan for disasters that may never come, are you able to live the life that is actually here? Min looked down at his hands, still holding the half-peeled radish. He noticed that his fingers had gone white from gripping the knife too tightly, just as Tomoe's had gripped the tea bowl. He noticed the tension in his shoulders, the tightness in his jaw, the shallow breathing high in his chest. But if I stop worrying, he said quietly, if I stop preparing for what might happen, won't I be irresponsible? Won't I be failing my family? Thay Hien set down the radish and turned to face Min fully. There is a difference, he said, between wise preparation and endless worry. Wise preparation means you fix the roof when you notice it is damaged. You save rice when the harvest is good. You learn skills that will serve you in difficult times. This is acting from presence and wisdom. He paused, letting his words settle in the morning air. Endless worry means you lie awake every night, imagining all the ways the roof might collapse, all the famines that might come, all the disasters that might befall you. And while you are lost in these imaginings, you miss the actual leak in the actual roof that needs your actual attention today. Min felt something shift inside his chest, a loosening he had not expected. I did not know there was a difference, he admitted. Most people do not, Thay Hien said. We are taught that worry is a form of caring, that anxiety means we are being responsible. But worry is not care. Worry is suffering that we add to life's natural challenges. It is like carrying an empty water jar on your head all day because you are afraid you might become thirsty later. They sat in silence for a long time. Min watched the monk continue his work with the radishes, each movement complete and unhurried. He tried to imitate this quality in his own hands, slowing down, giving each radish his full attention instead of rushing to finish. It felt strange at first, almost painful, like muscles that had been clenched for years finally being asked to relax. But gradually, as he focused on the simple task, feeling the knife against the vegetable skin, noting the texture and weight and small variations in each radish, he felt his mind begin to quiet. Not completely, not suddenly, but like a pond slowly settling after stones have disturbed its surface. The mind is like a puppy, Tae-Hien said softly. It runs after every movement, every sound, every possibility. Chasing this, chasing that. We cannot stop it from being a puppy, but we can gently, patiently bring it back. Again and again. Come back, little puppy. Come back to now. Come back to this breath. Come back to this moment. Min found himself smiling despite his anxiety. My mind is a very busy puppy. Everyone's mind is a busy puppy, the monk said, and his eyes crinkled with humor. The question is not how to make the puppy stop being a puppy. The question is whether you will run after the puppy or sit still and let it eventually return to you. They worked together until all the radishes were peeled. Tae-Hien invited Min to share the simple meal he was preparing, and they ate in comfortable silence. Sitting on the temple steps, looking out over the valley where Min's village nestled among the terraced fields. After the meal, as Min prepared to leave, the monk walked with him to the edge of the temple grounds. You can visit again, he said, or you can practice what we did today anywhere. When you notice your mind racing ahead to disasters that have not happened, ask yourself, is this actually occurring now? Then feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath moving. Notice one real thing that is actually present. The mind will learn, slowly, that it can come home. Min bowed deeply and began the walk back down the mountain. As he walked, he noticed things he had not registered on the way up, the particular green of new bamboo shoots, the sound of water moving through an irrigation channel, the warmth of sun on his arms, the strength in his legs carrying him steadily down the path. The worries were still there, hovering at the edges of his awareness like birds waiting to land. But they seemed somehow lighter, less solid, more like weather passing through rather than the immutable truth of his existence. That night, lying on his sleeping mat, when his mind began its familiar spiral into what-ifs and disasters, Min remembered Tae-Hien's words. Is this actually happening now? He felt his breath moving in and out. He noticed the sound of crickets outside, the warmth of the blanket, the gentle breathing of his family around him in the darkness. The worries did not disappear, but for the first time in years, they did not completely consume him. There was space around them, breathing room, a recognition that his fearful thoughts about the future were not the same as the present moment he was actually living. He slept better that night than he had in months. And in the morning, when he woke to face the day's work, he found that he could do what needed doing without carrying the additional weight of 1,000 imagined catastrophes on his shoulders. Over the weeks and months that followed, Min returned to the temple many times. Some days he worked alongside Tae-Hien in the vegetable garden. Other days they simply sat together in silence. Slowly, patiently, like a farmer learning to trust the seasons. Min learned to distinguish between present reality and the stories his mind told about possible futures. The rice crop did well that year. The taxes remained high but manageable. His mother's cough faded with the coming of drier weather. His sister found a kind young man who loved her despite the modest dowry. None of the disasters Min had worried about actually came to pass. And the few genuine difficulties that did arise, he found he could face more clearly without the fog of constant anxiety, clouding his ability to see what was actually needed in each moment. Years later, when political upheaval did eventually reach their village, when real danger came and real decisions had to be made, Min discovered that the practice of staying present, of coming back to now, did not make him passive or unprepared. Instead, it allowed him to see clearly what was happening and respond with wisdom rather than reacting from fear. The puppy of his mind still chased after worries, but he had learned, gently, patiently, to bring it back home. In Buddhist psychology, there is a term for this pattern that Min experienced, papanka, which means the mind's tendency to proliferate, to spin out endless elaborations from a single thought. We take one real concern, one genuine challenge, and our minds build vast structures of worry upon it, floor after floor of what-if scenarios, until we are living in a mental tower of suffering that exists nowhere except in our imagination. This is not wisdom. This is not preparation. This is suffering that we create and then carry with us like heavy stones in our pockets, weighing us down as we try to walk through life. Right now, as you lie here in the darkness, notice what your mind is doing. Is it here, with your breath, with your body, with the actual present moment? Or has it raced ahead to tomorrow's challenges, next week's appointments, next month's concerns? Is it replaying conversations from yesterday, rehearsing things you wish you had said, or fears about what someone might think? The worries you carry are not happening now. The disasters you imagine are not real in this moment. This does not mean they might not happen. It means that suffering about them now does not prevent them, does not prepare you better, does not serve any purpose except to rob you of the peace that is available in this present moment. Feel your breath. This is real. Feel the surface beneath you. This is real. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. This is real. Your mind will protest. It will say that you must keep worrying, that letting go of anxiety means being irresponsible, that vigilance equals care. But this is not true. You can face tomorrow's challenges when tomorrow comes. You can address real problems with wisdom when they actually arise. But you cannot solve future problems by suffering about them now. You can only exhaust yourself, only burden your body with tension, only cloud your ability to see and respond clearly when genuine challenges do appear. When you notice your mind has wandered into worry, into the what-ifs and the if-onlys, gently bring it back, not with harshness, not with self-criticism, but with the patience you would show a puppy learning to stay. Come back, busy mind. Come back to now. Come back to breath. Come back to what is actually here. This is enough. This moment is enough. You are enough. The constant planning, the endless preparation, the vigilant scanning for danger, none of this makes you safer. It only makes you tired. Real wisdom comes from presence, not from anxiety. Real strength comes from meeting each moment freshly, not from trying to live all possible future moments simultaneously. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Feel the weight of worry lifting, even slightly, even temporarily. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You do not need to figure out every problem or prevent every disaster. You only need to be here, breathing, resting, trusting that you will meet what comes when it comes, with whatever wisdom and strength you have available in that actual moment. And as that recognition settles gently into your awareness, as your mind begins to release its grip on the future and settle more fully into now, we continue our journey through the night, moving toward another story, another teaching, another opportunity to discover the peace that lives beneath all our endless thinking. Breathe. Rest. Let the worries float like clouds across the sky of your mind without needing to chase them or push them away. They are just thoughts, just mind weather, just the puppy doing what puppies do. You do not have to follow. Stay here, just for now, just for this breath. The rest will take care of itself. In the dry forests of Sri Lanka, in a time when the Buddha's teachings were still new to the island, there lived a woman named Nalini who carried her suffering like a carefully tended garden, watering it daily with her thoughts until it grew vast and inescapable. Nalini was 38 years old and lived in a village near Anuradhapura, where the great stupa rose white against the sky. She was a widow. Her husband, Ananda, had died 3 years earlier from fever, leaving her with 2 young daughters and a small plot of land that barely sustained them. The grief of his death had been sharp and terrible, like a blade through her chest. But that grief, as painful as it was, had eventually softened at the edges, becoming something she could carry. What had not softened was everything else Nalini told herself about the grief. Every morning when she woke, her mind began its familiar narration. This should not have happened. A good woman does not lose her husband so young. I must have done something terrible in a past life to deserve this punishment. Other women have their husbands beside them. Other children have fathers to guide them. I am broken. I am cursed. I am alone. She told herself these stories so many times that they became more solid than the actual ground beneath her feet. The original pain of loss, the simple human grief of missing someone beloved, became buried under layers and layers of judgment, comparison, shame, and fear. She did not just grieve her husband. She grieved the story of herself as someone who deserved to be abandoned. She grieved the future she had imagined that would never come. She grieved what other people must think of her. She grieved her own grief, creating suffering upon suffering upon suffering. Her neighbor was an elderly woman named Rohini who lived alone in a small house at the edge of the village. Rohini had practiced the Buddha's teachings for many years. Though she held no special title and claimed no particular wisdom, she tended a small garden, offered food to passing monks, and sat in meditation each morning before dawn. People said she had once been a dancer in the king's court before renouncing that life, but she never spoke of her past. Rohini had watched Nalini over the 3 years since Ananda's death, seeing how the younger woman seemed to sink deeper into misery even as time passed, even as her daughters grew and the initial shock of loss should have been integrating into the fabric of her life. One afternoon, when Nalini was drawing water from the village well, moving with the slow heaviness of someone carrying an invisible weight, Rohini approached her. "Come walk with me," Rohini said gently. "Just for a short while. Your daughters are playing safely with the other children." Nalini wanted to refuse. She had work to do, always work to do. But something in Rohini's steady gaze made her set down her water jug and follow. They walked together through the dusty paths at the edge of the village, past fields where farmers worked their land, past the banyan tree where children played in the shade. Rohini said nothing for a long time, just walked at an easy pace. occasionally pausing to examine a flower or watch a bird. Finally, when they had reached a quiet spot overlooking a small stream, Rohini sat on a fallen log and patted the space beside her. Nalini sat, feeling awkward and uncertain, wondering why she had agreed to this. "Tell me about your suffering," Rohini said simply. The words poured out of Nalini like water from a broken dam. She spoke about Ananda's death, about the unfairness of it, about how hard she worked to feed her daughters, about the loneliness that consumed her nights, about the pitying looks from other villagers, about her certainty that she was being punished for some unknown sin, about her fear that she would never feel joy again, about the wrongness of a world where good men died young and left their wives to struggle alone. Rohini listened without interrupting, her face peaceful and attentive. When Nalini finally fell silent, exhausted by her own words, the old woman nodded slowly. "The Buddha taught something about suffering that I would like to share with you," Rohini said. "May I?" Nalini nodded, though she felt a flash of resentment. What could ancient teachings tell her about the actual, immediate pain of her life? "Imagine," Rohini said, "that you are walking through the forest and suddenly an arrow strikes you in the shoulder. It pierces deep. The pain is sharp and terrible. You cry out. Blood flows. This is the first arrow, and it is real. The pain is real. The wound is real." Nalini nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "Now imagine," Rohini continued, "that immediately after the first arrow strikes you, you pick up a second arrow and shoot yourself with it, and then a third, and a fourth, and you keep shooting yourself, over and over, crying out with each new wound. Why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? This is so unfair. I cannot bear this. My life is ruined. Everyone else is fine, and only I am hurt. I must be cursed." Rohini's voice had taken on the quality of Nalini's own internal narrative, and Nalini felt a shock of recognition that was almost physical. "The first arrow is the actual loss," Rohini said gently. "Your husband died. That is real. That is painful. That is the unavoidable suffering that comes with being human, with loving people who will die, with living in bodies that are fragile and temporary. The Buddha called this dukkha, the first noble truth. Life includes pain. Loss is real." She paused, letting this settle. "But the second arrow, and all the arrows that follow, these you shoot yourself. Every time you tell yourself you are cursed, that is an arrow. Every time you compare your life to others and find yourself lacking, that is an arrow. Every time you judge yourself for still grieving, or fear that you will never feel better, or decide that Ananda's death means something terrible about your worthiness, those are arrows. And the Buddha taught that while we cannot always prevent the first arrow, we absolutely can stop shooting ourselves with the second." Nalini felt tears streaming down her face. "But I do not know how to stop," she whispered. "The thoughts come by themselves. I do not choose them." "That is true," Rohini said. "At first, they come by themselves, like birds landing in a tree. But then we feed them. We invite them in. We build them nests. We give them names and stories and treat them as though they are reality itself, rather than just thoughts passing through the mind." She reached down and picked up a small stone from the ground beside the log. "Hold out your hand," she said. Nalini extended her palm. Rohini placed the stone in it. "This stone is like the first arrow. It has weight. It is real. You can feel it. Now, tell me, what does this stone mean about you as a person? Nalini looked at the stone, confused. It means nothing. It is just a stone. Exactly, Rohini said softly. And your husband's death, painful as it was, is like this stone. It is an event that happened. It has weight. It is real, but it means nothing about your worth, your karma, your deservedness, or your future. Those meanings, those stories, those are all second arrows that you are adding. Nalini stared at the stone in her palm. She thought about all the ways she had turned Ananda's death into evidence of her own unworthiness. All the layers of meaning she had built upon a simple, terrible fact. Her husband had died of fever. That was the first arrow. Everything else, every story about what it meant, every comparison to other women, every certainty about her cursed future, those were arrows she had been shooting into her own flesh for 3 years. But how do I stop? She asked again. The thoughts still come. You notice them, Rohini said. You see them for what they are. Thoughts. Just thoughts. Not truth. Not reality. Not destiny. Just mental activity, like clouds passing across the sky. When you notice you are telling yourself you are cursed, you can say silently, that is a second arrow. I do not need to pick that up. When you notice you are comparing yourself to other women, you can say, that is a second arrow. When you notice you are predicting a miserable future, you can say, that is a second arrow. And then what? Nalini asked. Then you come back to what is actually happening in this moment. Right now, you are not being struck by arrows. Right now, you are sitting on a log by a stream. Your daughters are healthy. You are breathing. The sun is warm on your face. The pain of Ananda's absence is still there. Yes, that first arrow does not disappear. But all the additional suffering you have been creating around it, that can begin to loosen. Slowly, gently, with practice. They sat in silence for a time. Nalini became aware of things she had not noticed before. The sound of water moving over stones, the warmth of afternoon sun on her shoulders, the solid presence of earth beneath her feet, the stone's smooth weight in her palm. She noticed, too, the exact moment her mind began to spin into story. But this peace will not last. Tomorrow, I will still be a widow. Tomorrow, the pain will return. Second arrow, she thought. Just a thought. Just a prediction. Not happening now. She took a breath and came back to the stream. The sun, the warmth, the stone. Over the weeks and months that followed, Nalini practiced this noticing with Rohini's patient guidance. It was not easy. Her mind had been telling these stories for so long that they felt more real than reality. But gradually, like learning any new skill, she became faster at recognizing when she was adding extra suffering to the unavoidable pain of loss. She noticed that when she simply felt grief, just the clean, pure sadness of missing Ananda, it was bearable. It washed through her like rain, intense but passing. But when she added all her stories about what the grief meant, when she began shooting the second and third and fourth arrows, the pain became unbearable, endless, a prison she could not escape. She learned to differentiate between first arrows and second arrows in all areas of her life. When her daughter fell and scraped her knee, that was a first arrow, painful but manageable. But when Nalini's mind began its familiar spiral, if I were a better mother, this would not have happened. I cannot protect them. I am failing them the way I failed their father by not preventing his death. Those were second arrows, and she could choose not to pick them up. When another woman in the village remarked casually that it must be hard to manage alone, Nalini's first impulse was to take this as evidence of her inadequacy, to shoot herself with arrows of shame and comparison. But now she could pause, to recognize the pattern, and simply acknowledge, yes, it is sometimes hard. That is the first arrow. All the rest is optional. One afternoon, 2 years after her first walk with Rohini, Nalini realized she had gone an entire day without shooting herself with a single second arrow. She had felt sad when she remembered Ananda, but she had not added any story about what that sadness meant about her. She had felt tired from work, but she had not concluded that her tiredness was evidence of her fundamental inadequacy. She had noticed comparison arising when she saw a husband and wife working together in their field, but she had recognized it as just a thought passing through, not truth. She sought out Rohini that evening and found the old woman sitting in her garden as the sun set, watching moths begin their evening dance around the jasmine flowers. "Thank you," Nalini said simply, sitting beside her. Rohini smiled. "You have taught yourself. I only showed you where to look. I still miss him," Nalini said. "The grief is still there." "Of course it is," Rohini replied. "The first arrow leaves a mark. Love leaves a mark. This is natural. But you are no longer bleeding from 100 self-inflicted wounds. You are carrying one scar, not 1,000. And there is a great deal of difference." Nalini nodded, feeling the truth of this in her body. She was lighter now, freer, able to move through her days with a grace she had thought was lost forever. The pain of Ananda's death had not disappeared. She did not expect it ever would completely, but it had become something she could carry, rather than something that carried her. Years later, when other villagers came to Nalini with their own sorrows, she would share what Rohini had taught her. She would tell them about the 2 arrows, about the difference between unavoidable pain and optional suffering. Some understood immediately. Others took years, as she had, to learn the distinction. But she continued to offer the teaching, knowing that it had saved her life, had given her back to herself and to her daughters, had shown her that there is a way to carry loss without drowning in it. The Buddha's teaching about the 2 arrows appears in the ancient texts, spoken to his disciples over 2,500 years ago, but its truth remains immediate and relevant. Each of us faces first arrows constantly. The body ages. People we love leave or change or die. Work is difficult. The world does not conform to our preferences. These pains are real. They are part of being alive. But then we add our stories. We add our judgments. We add our comparisons and predictions and certainties about what pain means about us. We tell ourselves we should not be feeling what we are feeling. We tell ourselves that our pain is evidence of our inadequacy, our failure, our unworthiness. We tell ourselves that everyone else has it easier, that we are uniquely cursed, that this pain will never end, that something is fundamentally wrong with us for hurting. These are the second arrows, and they cause far more suffering than the first arrow ever could. Think about your own life right now. What are your first arrows? What is actually difficult, actually painful, actually challenging in this moment? Perhaps your body aches. Perhaps you are lonely. Perhaps something you hoped for did not come to pass. These are first arrows, and they are real. Do not deny them. Do not pretend they do not hurt. But now notice the second arrows. Notice the stories you tell about what the pain means. Notice how you judge yourself for feeling it. Notice how you compare your pain to others' apparent ease. Notice how you predict that it will never end, that you will never feel better, that something is wrong with you for struggling. Each of these thoughts is a second arrow, and you can choose gently, carefully, with practice and patience, not to pick it up. This does not mean the first arrow stops hurting. Loss still aches. Loneliness still stings. Bodies still age and fail. But without the second arrows, without the layers of meaning and judgment and story we pile on top of the original pain, suffering becomes more bearable. The wound is clean rather than infected. The pain is sharp rather than poisoned. Right now, in this moment, notice what hurts. Just the simple, actual hurt. Not the story about it, not the judgment of it, not the prediction about whether it will ever end. Just the sensation itself, the emotion itself, the simple fact of the pain. And then notice if you are adding anything to it. Are you telling yourself you should not be feeling this? Second arrow. Are you comparing yourself to others who seem to have it easier? Second arrow. Are you deciding this means something terrible about your worth or your future? Second arrow. You do not need to fight these thoughts when they arise. Fighting is just another arrow. Instead, simply recognize them. That is a second arrow. I do not need to pick that up. And then come back to what is actually here. Your breath, your body. This moment, the first arrow may still be present, but you are no longer multiplying your suffering by shooting yourself again and again. Let your shoulders soften. Let the stories loosen their grip. Feel the difference between the pain that life brings and the pain you have been adding through your thoughts about the pain. There is great freedom in this recognition. Not freedom from pain that is not possible in human life, but freedom within pain, space around it, the ability to carry what must be carried without burdening yourself further. Breathe in. The first arrow is there. Perhaps the ache or loneliness or grief or physical pain. Breathe out. Let the second arrows fall away. You do not need them. They have never protected you. They have never made anything better. They have only made you bleed. And as that awareness settles gently into your understanding, as your body begins to release the tension of carrying unnecessary suffering, we move deeper into the night, toward another story, another teaching, another opportunity to see how we create our own struggles and how we can, with wisdom and practice, learn to put down what we do not need to carry. Rest now. The first arrows are enough. You do not need to add more. Let yourself be held by the darkness, by the night, by the simple truth that you are doing the best you can with what you know. And that is always, always enough. In the mountains of Jiangxi province, during the late Tang dynasty, there lived a scholar named Wei who could not stop trying to fix everything. He approached his spiritual practice the way he approached everything else in his life, with meticulous planning, rigorous discipline, and an unshakable conviction that if he just tried hard enough, applied the right techniques, followed the correct procedures, enlightenment would arrive like a package he had properly ordered. Wei was 42 years old and had been studying Buddhist texts for nearly 20 years. His library contained scrolls of sutras carefully catalogued and annotated. He had memorized vast portions of the Lankavatara Sutra and the Diamond Sutra. He could discuss the finer points of doctrine with anyone. He meditated every morning for exactly 2 hours, sitting in perfect posture, counting his breaths with mathematical precision. He observed the precepts faithfully. He attended teachings whenever traveling monks passed through his region. and yet something was missing. Despite all his efforts, all his study, all his careful cultivation of virtue and wisdom, Wei felt no closer to the peace and liberation the texts described. If anything, he felt more anxious, more tightly wound, more exhausted by the constant effort of trying to become enlightened. He had read that the Chan masters spoke of sudden awakening, of a direct seeing into one's true nature that required no gradual accumulation of knowledge or merit. This frustrated him immensely. How could one achieve sudden awakening without proper preparation, without following the right steps, without doing something to make it happen? One autumn, Wei heard that a Chan master named Jingshan was staying temporarily at a small temple in the mountains above his village. Jingshan was known for his unconventional teaching methods and his reputation for shocking students out of their conceptual understanding. Wei was skeptical of such approaches. They seemed undisciplined, almost dangerous, but his own methods had brought him nowhere. In a moment of desperation, he decided to visit. He found Master Jingshan sitting on the temple steps, watching leaves fall from a nearby ginkgo tree. The master was perhaps 60 years old, thin and weathered, with eyes that seemed to contain both great humor and great emptiness. Wei approached with the formal bow he had perfected through years of practice. "Master," Wei said, remaining in his bow, "I have come seeking instruction." "Stand up," Jingshan said. "I cannot see your face down there." Wei straightened, feeling slightly off balance already. "I have studied the Dharma for 20 years, he began, launching into the speech he had prepared on the long walk up the mountain. "I have read the sutras, practiced meditation, observed the precepts. I follow all the instructions I find in the texts. And yet, I feel no closer to awakening. I work so hard, but nothing happens. What am I doing wrong? What technique am I missing? What practice should I add?" Jingshan looked at him for a long moment, then gestured to the space beside him on the steps. "Sit." Wei sat carefully, maintaining perfect posture even in this informal setting. "Tell me," Jingshan said, "what are you holding right now?" Wei looked down at his empty hands. "Nothing, Master." "No? You are holding nothing?" Jingshan's eyebrows rose. "I see a man gripping his enlightenment so tightly his knuckles have gone white. I see a man clutching his techniques and his texts and his perfect posture as though they could save him from drowning. I see a man holding on to the idea of himself as a diligent practitioner, terrified that if he lets go even slightly, everything will fall apart." Wei felt a flash of defensiveness. "But the texts say we must practice. They say we must cultivate wisdom and virtue. They say we must follow the path. I am only doing what I have been taught." "And where has this doing gotten you?" Jingshan asked gently. Wei was silent. The answer was obvious: nowhere. "You come to me asking what technique you are missing," Jingshan continued. "What practice to add? More doing, more grasping, more control. But I will tell you something the texts do not say, though it is written in every one of them if you know how to read. Enlightenment is not something you do, it is what remains when you stop doing." "But surely I must do something," Wei protested. "I cannot simply abandon all practice, all discipline. That would be chaos." Jingshan laughed, a sound like wind through bamboo. "You think the only choices are rigid control or complete chaos? This is like thinking the only choices are to grip water so tightly it runs through your fingers, or to have no water at all. Have you never seen how water rests in a gently cupped palm?" Wei remembered Rohini's teaching to Nalini, though he had never heard that story. Yet the wisdom was the same, appearing in different forms, from different teachers. always pointing to the same truth. "Watch this," Jingshan said. He picked up a fallen ginkgo leaf from the step beside him, bright yellow and fan-shaped, and held it up. "Do you see this leaf?" "Yes, Master." "What is it doing right now?" Wei looked at the leaf, confused. "It is not doing anything. It is just being a leaf." "Exactly," Jingshan's eyes lit up. "It is not trying to be a better leaf. It is not studying leaf sutras. It is not practicing leaf meditation to achieve leaf enlightenment. It simply is what it is, completely and perfectly, without any extra effort." He held the leaf on his open palm. "And now watch what happens when I stop holding it." He turned his palm downward. The leaf drifted away on the breeze, spinning and turning, following the currents of air with perfect grace. Did I make the leaf fall? Did I control its path? Or did I simply stop interfering with what was already happening? Wei watched the leaf spiral down toward the garden below. Something in his chest began to ache, a tightness he had not fully recognized until this moment. "Everything in you is trying," Jingshan said softly. "Trying to be good, trying to be worthy, trying to deserve enlightenment through the accumulation of correct actions and proper understanding. You have turned the path into a burden you must carry uphill. You have made liberation into a prison you must perfect before the door will open." Wei felt tears prick at his eyes. "But if I stop trying, won't I fail? Won't I fall into laziness and delusion? Stopping trying is not the same as stopping practice." Jingshan said, "You can still sit in meditation, but without gripping the meditation, without trying to make something happen. You can still study texts, but without clinging to the words, without trying to force understanding. You can still walk the path, but lightly, like walking on fresh snow, leaving the lightest possible footprints." He paused, watching another leaf detach from the tree and begin its descent. "The Chan masters say, when hungry, eat. When tired, sleep. When sitting, just sit. When walking, just walk. Above all, don't wobble." "Do you know what the wobbling is?" Wei shook his head. "The wobbling is all the extra effort. All the trying to do it right. All the checking to see if you are making progress. All the grasping after results. The action itself is simple and clean. The wobbling is everything you add to the action because you do not trust it to be enough." Jingshan stood and began to walk down the temple steps. Wei scrambled to follow, his mind racing with questions, objections, confusions. The master walked through the garden without apparent destination, occasionally pausing to look at a flower or a stone, then moving on. "Master," Wei called, "I do not understand. If I am not trying to achieve enlightenment, then what am I doing?" Jingshan stopped and turned to face him. "Right now, what are you doing?" I am walking. I am talking with you. I am trying to understand. And that last part, the trying to understand, that is the wobbling. Drop it. What is left? Walking. Talking. And Wei looked around. The garden was quiet in the afternoon light. Birds called from the trees. A breeze moved through the bamboo grove beside the path, creating a sound like distant water. His feet were on the earth. His breath was moving in and out. "Just this," he said quietly. "Just this." Jingshan echoed. "And is this not enough? Must you add anything to this moment for it to be complete?" Wei felt something shift. Like a door he had not known was locked, suddenly opening a crack. "No," he whispered. "It is already complete." "Then why?" Jingshan asked. "Are you trying so hard to make it something other than it is?" They walked together for over an hour, sometimes in silence, sometimes with Jingshan offering brief comments that seemed designed more to disrupt Wei's thinking than to provide answers. When they returned to the temple steps where they had begun, the master sat again. "You may come visit me when you wish," Jingshan said, "but I will not give you techniques. I will not give you practices to add to your collection. I will not teach you how to achieve anything. I can only point out where you are gripping, where you are wobbling, where you are trying to control what needs no controlling." "What about my meditation?" Wei asked. "Should I continue? Do you enjoy it?" The question startled Wei. He had never thought about whether he enjoyed meditation. It was something he was supposed to do, something that would bring results if he did it correctly. I don't know," he admitted. "Then find out." Jingshan said, "Sit tomorrow morning, but sit as though you have nothing to achieve, as though there is nowhere to get to, as though this one breath is the entire universe, complete and perfect. And notice what happens when you stop trying to make meditation into a tool for getting somewhere else." Wei bowed and began the walk back down the mountain. His mind wanted to turn what Jingshan had said into a new technique, a new approach to add to his practice. "Stop trying," he told himself. But then he realized that trying to stop trying was just more trying, more grasping, more control. He laughed aloud at the absurdity of it. Over the weeks that followed, Wei visited Master Jingshan regularly. Sometimes they worked together in the temple garden. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes they walked in the mountains. Jingshan rarely gave direct instruction. Instead, he would ask questions. "What are you holding right now? Where are you wobbling? Can this moment be itself without your help?" Slowly, gradually, Wei began to notice the constant tension of effort that had pervaded his entire life. Not just in his spiritual practice, but in everything. The way he held his body always slightly braced, ready to control whatever might happen. The way his mind constantly evaluated and judged, trying to optimize every experience. The way even his kindness toward others was shadowed by a desire to be seen as kind, to accumulate merit, to do compassion correctly. One morning during meditation, sitting in his room before dawn, Wei felt the familiar urge to check his posture, to adjust his breath count, to evaluate whether he was doing it right. And for the first time, he recognized this urge not as helpful diligence, but as the wobbling Jingshan had described. He let it go. He did not make himself let it go. He simply recognized it as unnecessary, and it fell away on its own, like the ginkgo leaf falling from the master's palm. What remained was just sitting, just breath, just the sound of birds beginning to call as dawn approached. Just this moment, complete and whole, requiring nothing added, nothing taken away. It was not a dramatic enlightenment. There was no thunder, no light, no sudden transformation of consciousness. It was more like coming home after a long journey and realizing you had never actually left. The peace he had been seeking through 20 years of striving had always been here, hidden under all the seeking itself. That afternoon, Wei climbed the mountain to see Jingshan. He found the master sitting in the garden, as usual, watching clouds drift across the autumn sky. "Master," Wei said, sitting beside him without fanfare, "I think I am beginning to understand." Jingshan glanced at him and smiled. "Good. Now forget it." Wei laughed. Of course, understanding was just another thing to grasp, another achievement to hold on to. He let it go and simply sat, watching the clouds with his teacher, not trying to see them correctly or understand them deeply or gain insight from them. Just watching, just sitting, just this. Years later, when students came to Wei, seeking instruction in meditation, he would tell them about Master Jingshan and the ginkgo leaf. He would ask them what they were holding, where they were wobbling, whether this moment needed anything added to be complete. Some understood quickly. Others, like Wei himself had been, we needed years of gentle, reminding that the path to freedom runs through letting go, not holding on. The Chan masters have a saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The actions remain the same. What changes is the quality of doing. Before, we chop wood while gripping the axe, trying to chop perfectly, evaluating each stroke, striving to become a better wood chopper. After, we simply chop wood. The axe falls. The wood splits. We do what needs doing without the overlay of constant self-improvement, without the wobbling of effort that tries to control the uncontrollable. This teaching is not only for monks and spiritual seekers. It applies to everything. We try so hard to control our lives, to make things happen through sheer force of will and effort. We grip our careers, our relationships, our health, our children's futures. We wobble constantly, adding anxiety and tension and endless evaluation to every simple action. What would it be like to hold things gently, to let the leaf fall when it is ready to fall, to chop wood without the wobbling, to wash dishes without the commentary about dishes, to have a difficult conversation without the constant monitoring of how you are doing right now? Notice what you are trying to control. Notice where you are gripping. It might be physical, your jaw clenched or your shoulders raised. It might be mental, your mind trying to figure everything out, to plan for every contingency, to make sure you are doing this moment correctly. It might be emotional, trying to control what you feel, judging yourself for feeling wrong things. What would happen if you stopped? Not collapsed into chaos, but simply stopped the extra effort, the wobbling, the constant trying to make this moment into something other than what it already is. The moment does not need your control to be what it is. The breath does not need your management to flow. The heart does not need your permission to beat. Life is happening, with or without your tight grip on the steering wheel. The question is only whether you will exhaust yourself trying to control the uncontrollable, or whether you will let your hands rest gently on the wheel, responding when response is needed, resting when rest is possible. Feel your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop. Notice the breath moving without your doing. You are not making the breath happen. It is happening through you. You are not making your heart beat. It is beating. You are not making the night hold you. It is holding you. Can you trust this? Can you let yourself be breathed, to be lived, be held, without the constant vigilance of control? Even for a moment, even for this one breath, let the leaf fall. Let the water rest in your gently cupped palm. Let this moment be exactly what it is without needing to fix it, improve it, perfect it, or turn it into something else. And as that loosening happens, as your grip softens and the wobbling stills, we move deeper into the night's wisdom, toward another story, another teacher, another pointing toward the freedom that comes not through doing but through allowing, not through grasping but through gentle opening. Rest now in the not doing. Trust the doing that happens through you without your effortful control. You are already complete. This moment is already whole. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be fixed. Just this. Just breath. Just peace. In the Taebaek Mountains of Korea, during a winter so harsh that even the monastery wells froze solid, there lived a nun named Sunim who had spent 15 years learning to hold on and now faced the terrifying task of learning to let go. Sunim was 36 years old and had entered monastic life when she was 21, fleeing an arranged marriage to a merchant's son she had never loved. In the mountain hermitage of Woljeong-sa, she had found what she thought was freedom. She practiced Hwadu meditation with fierce dedication, working with the question, "What is this?" until her mind ached from the effort. She memorized sutras, performed 3,000 prostrations monthly, maintained strict precepts, and served her teacher with absolute devotion. But beneath all this, practice lived a terror she rarely acknowledged, the fear that if she relaxed her vigilance even slightly, everything would fall apart. She held her practice the way a drowning person holds a rope, with desperate intensity, white-knuckled and trembling. She could not imagine what would happen if she simply let go. Her teacher, an elderly master named Wolmyong, had watched this pattern for years. Wolmyong was nearly 70, gap-toothed and weathered, with eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense into the tender, frightened heart of things. She lived in a small hermitage even higher up the mountain than the main temple, accessible only by a steep path that became treacherous in winter. One morning in the deepest cold of the year, Wolmyong sent word that Sunim should come visit her. The message was simple: "Come when you are ready to fall." Sunim read the message 3 times, feeling her stomach tighten with each reading. "Come when you are ready to fall." What did it mean? Was she being tested? Was this some kind of koan? She sat with the question for 3 days, trying to understand, trying to prepare, trying to figure out the right answer before she made the climb. On the 4th day, she realized she would never feel ready. She put on her warmest robes, wrapped cloth around her hands for the frozen path, and began the ascent to Wolmyong's hermitage. The path was worse than she had imagined. Ice covered the stones. Wind howled through the pines, carrying snow that stung her face. Several times she slipped, catching herself at the last moment, heart pounding, fingers scrambling for purchase on frozen rock. Each near fall terrified her. Each time she caught herself, she felt a grim satisfaction. "See," she told herself, "you must hold on." Letting go means falling. Falling means death. She arrived at the hermitage exhausted, hands bleeding through the cloth wrappings, legs trembling from the effort of climbing while braced against falling. Wolmyong was sitting outside despite the cold, wrapped in a heavy cloak, watching the clouds move across the valley below. "You made it," Wolmyong said without turning. "How many times did you almost fall?" 7 times, Sunim admitted, sitting heavily on the frozen ground beside her teacher. "And each time, what did you do?" "I caught myself. I held on." "Of course you did," Wolmyong said. "You always do. You have been catching yourself for 15 years. Catching yourself before you fall into laziness. Catching yourself before you fall into desire. Catching yourself before you fall into doubt. Always vigilant. Always braced. Always ready to catch yourself before you fall into being fully alive." Sunim felt tears freeze on her cheeks. "But if I don't catch myself, won't I fall?" "Perhaps," Wolmyong said. "But have you ever considered that falling is not the same as failing? that there might be something beneath you that will catch what you cannot hold. She gestured to the valley spread out below them, white with snow, punctuated by dark pines. Look at the snow. All winter, it falls. Does it try to catch itself? Does it brace against falling? Does it grip and strain and worry about whether it is falling correctly? Sunim watched the snow drifting down, soft and inevitable, settling where it would. The snow falls and becomes part of the mountain. Wolmyong continued. The mountain does not try to catch the snow. The snow does not try to avoid falling. There is just falling and being caught, and the mountain growing deeper with each season's letting go. But I am not snow. Sunim protested. I have responsibilities. I have practice. I have vows. If I let go, if I stop trying so hard, won't I lose everything? Wolmyong stood, moving with the careful grace of someone whose body had learned to work with gravity rather than against it. Come inside. I want to show you something. The hermitage was a single small room, sparse and bitterly cold. In the corner sat a water jar, and beside it, a bamboo ladle that had been repaired many times, the handle wrapped with twine where it had cracked. This ladle, Wolmyong said, picking it up, I have had for 40 years. When I first came to this hermitage, it was whole and perfect. Over the years, it has cracked. Each time it cracks, I repair it. But I do not prevent it from cracking. I do not hold it so carefully that it never touches anything. I use it. It breaks. I mend it. This is the way of things. She dipped the ladle into the water and offered it to Sunim. Drink. Sunim took the ladle, noticing how the repairs made it more beautiful somehow. The twine dark against the pale bamboo, each mending a story of use and care. She drank, the water so cold it hurt her throat. You think, Wolmyong said, that if you hold tight enough, nothing will break. But everything breaks. Everything changes. Everything falls. Eventually, the question is not how to prevent falling. The question is, can you fall with grace? Can you trust what catches you? She sat beside Sunim on the floor. In Korean, we have a word, hanmoum. It means one heart-mind, the shared foundation of all things. It is not something you create through effort. It is what is already there when you stop trying to create anything. It is what catches you when you fall. Sunim felt something inside her chest begin to shake, like ice beginning to crack. But how do I trust something I cannot see? How do I let go when I am so afraid? You practice, Wolmyong said simply. Not the practice of effort, but the practice of allowing. Start small. Right now. Are you holding your breath? Sunim realized with a start that yes, her breath was tight and shallow, held in her chest, as though even breathing required her control. Let it go, Wolmyong said. Just for one breath. See what happens. Sunim exhaled slowly, letting the breath leave without trying to control how long it lasted or how deep it went. The next breath came in by itself, without her doing. And the next. And the next. You are not making yourself breathe, Wolmyong said. You are being breathed. Something larger than your small, frightened self is taking care of this. Can you feel it? Sunim nodded, tears flowing freely now, hot against her frozen cheeks. Yes, this is hanmaum. This is what catches you when you fall. This is what has been breathing you, beating your heart, growing your hair, healing your cuts, living your life all along. You have never been holding yourself up. You have been held. They sat together in silence for a long time. Outside, the snow continued falling, each flake surrendering to gravity, trusting in the mountain below. "I have a practice for you," Wulmyong finally said. "Every day, find one small thing you can let go of. One small place where you can stop catching yourself. Maybe you let go of trying to sit in perfect posture. Maybe you let go of judging whether your meditation was good or bad. Maybe you let go of the need to understand everything before you do it. Just one small release, one small falling, one small trust that you will be caught." Sunim visited Wulmyong many times that winter. Each visit, she practiced the path differently. Instead of bracing against every slip, she let herself slide sometimes, discovering that sliding was not the same as falling to her death. She learned to move with the ice rather than fighting it. She learned that loosening her grip made her more stable, not less. In meditation, she began to notice all the ways she was trying to empty her mind, trying to stay alert, trying to have insight, trying to become enlightened. Each time she noticed the trying, she would remember Wulmyong's question, "Can you let go? Can you trust what catches you?" At first, letting go lasted only seconds before the fear would grab hold again. But gradually, the spaces between gripping grew longer. She discovered she could sit in meditation without forcing anything, without making concentration happen, without trying to control the arising and passing of thoughts. She could simply sit, being breathed, being lived, being held by something too vast to name. One spring morning, doing her daily prostrations, Sunim suddenly understood. Bowing was not something she did. It was something that happened through her when she stopped trying to do it. The body bowing, the floor receiving, the breath moving, all of it, one seamless falling and catching, giving and receiving, letting go and being held. She went to find Wulmyong, running up the mountain path, which was no longer icy, her feet light on the stones. She found her teacher in the garden, planting seeds. "I understand," Sunim said, breathless. "It is not about trying to let go. It is about recognizing I am already held." Wulmyong looked up and smiled, her weathered face creasing with joy. "Good. Now forget it and plant these seeds." They worked together in silence, hands in the earth, planting what would grow only if they let it go, trusting the soil to do what soil does, trusting the seed to do what seeds do, trusting that their small act of planting was enough without needing to control the outcome. Years later, when Sunim became a teacher herself, she would tell students about Wulmyong and the icy path, about falling and being caught, about the practice of letting go. She would watch them grip their practice with the same white-knuckled intensity she once had. And she would ask gently, "What are you holding? What are you afraid will happen if you let go?" Some would understand quickly. Others would take years, as she had. But she continued to point toward the truth that had saved her. You are already held. You have always been held. The question is only whether you will exhaust yourself pretending to hold yourself up, or whether you will relax into the arms that have been carrying you all along. In Korean Seon practice, there is a teaching about Jungong, the true self that is empty and ever-changing. The master within that is not a fixed thing but a flowing response to life. When we try to control everything, we are living from our small, frightened self. When we let go and trust, we are living from Jungong, from the vast awareness that needs no controlling because it already is the flow itself. This is not passivity. This is not giving up. Myung still climbed the mountain every day, still practiced, still taught. But she did it all with open hands, with trust, with the recognition that her effort was not what made things happen. Her effort was simply her participation in something already happening, like a wave participating in the ocean. Right now, notice what you are gripping. Maybe it is worry about tomorrow. Maybe it is regret about yesterday. Maybe it is the need to figure everything out, to have all the answers, to control how things unfold. Maybe it is physical, your body held tight against some invisible threat. What would happen if you let go, not recklessly, not dangerously, but with trust? The way snow trusts the mountain, the way breath trusts the body, the way the seed trusts the soil, you will not fall into nothing. There is something beneath you, has always been beneath you, will always be beneath you. Call it Hanmaum, call it Buddha nature, call it life itself, call it the flow, call it grace. The name does not matter. What matters is the recognition that you are held. Feel your breath moving without your doing. Feel your heart beating without your effort. Feel gravity holding you to the earth. Feel the surface beneath you receiving your weight. You are not holding yourself here. You are being held. Can you let your shoulders drop, knowing you will not collapse? Can you let your mind rest, knowing you will not lose yourself? Can you let this moment be exactly what it is, knowing it will give way to the next moment without your needing to push it along? This is the practice. Not the practice of doing more, but the practice of allowing what is already being done through you. Not the practice of holding on, but the practice of recognizing you are held. Breathe in and feel yourself being lifted. Breathe out and feel yourself being received. Like snow falling to the mountain, like a wave returning to the ocean, like everything that has ever let go and discovered it was caught. And as that recognition deepens, as your body softens into the holding that has always been there, we continue through the night toward another story, another teaching, another opportunity to discover that peace comes not from gripping but from release, not from controlling but from trust. Rest now in being held. Let go of the exhausting work of holding yourself up. You are already supported. You have always been supported. Nothing you can do will make you more held than you already are. You can only recognize it or miss it. And right now, in this moment, you are recognizing it. Let yourself be breathed. Let yourself be lived. Let yourself be loved by the vastness that has been loving you since before you knew your own name. You are safe enough to let go. You are held. In the high valleys of Tibet, where the air is thin and monasteries cling to mountainsides like prayer flags flutter in the wind, there lived a woman named Dolma who believed she could hold back change through sheer force of will. Dolma was 41 years old and lived in a village beneath the shadow of Mount Kailash. She had a husband she loved deeply, 2 sons who were her pride, a small but comfortable house, a thriving vegetable garden, and a life that felt, for many years, like solid ground beneath her feet. She worked hard to maintain this life, to keep everything exactly as it was, to prevent any crack from appearing in the structure of her happiness. But life, as it always does, began to change anyway. Her eldest son announced he was leaving to study in Lhasa. Her husband developed a persistent cough that the village healer could not cure. Her garden, which had produced abundantly for years, began to struggle as the weather patterns shifted. The very mountain streams that had watered her land for generations now ran thinner, drier. Dolma responded to each change with increased effort. She worked longer hours in the garden, desperately trying to coax growth from reluctant soil. She begged her son not to leave, offering him everything she could think of to make him stay. She sought out healers from neighboring villages, spent their savings on medicines, prayed for hours at the small shrine in their home, bargaining with the deities to restore her husband's health. But the changes kept coming, like water flowing downhill. Impossible to dam, impossible to reverse. Her son left anyway. Her husband grew weaker. The garden continued to struggle, and Dolma felt herself breaking under the weight of trying to hold together a world determined to transform. One morning, after a night spent awake with worry, exhausted and desperate, Dolma walked to the small monastery on the hillside above her village. She had avoided going there for months, afraid that acknowledging her need for help would be admitting defeat. But she had run out of other options. She found Anit Sering, an elderly nun who had lived in the monastery for over 40 years, sitting in the courtyard making butter sculptures for an upcoming ceremony. The nun's hands moved with practiced ease, shaping the colored butter into intricate forms, flowers, offerings, tiny deities. She looked up as Dolma approached and simply nodded toward the space beside her, continuing her work without interruption. Dolma sat, not knowing how to begin. The words felt too large, too painful to speak. Finally, she whispered, "Everything is falling apart." Anit Sering continued shaping a small lotus flower from yellow butter. "Tell me," she said simply, and Dolma told her everything. The son leaving, the husband's illness, the dying garden, the exhaustion of trying to stop what could not be stopped, the terror of losing everything she had built, the feeling that she was failing at the one job that mattered most, keeping her family safe and her life intact. When she finished, her face was wet with tears. Anit Sering set down the butter flower she had been working on and looked at Dolma with eyes that held both compassion and something else, a clarity that was almost unsettling in its steadiness. "Do you see this flower I just made?" the nun asked, gesturing to the delicate yellow lotus on the table before them. Dolma nodded. "It is beautiful. Yes, I spent 20 minutes creating it. Every detail is precise. And tomorrow, when the ceremony is over, I will melt it down. The butter will be used to make other offerings, other sculptures, other forms. This flower will cease to exist." She picked up the lotus and held it in her palm. "Should I refuse to make it because it will not last? Should I try to preserve it, to keep it from melting, to hold it exactly as it is right now forever?" "No," Dolma said quietly. "That would be impossible." "Yes," Anit Sering agreed. "Impossible. And yet this is what you are doing with your life. You are trying to preserve what was never meant to be preserved. You are trying to stop time itself because you are afraid of what comes next." Dolma felt something in her chest crack open. "But if I stop trying to hold things together, won't they fall apart even faster?" Anit Sering smiled gently. "They are already falling apart. That is what things do. They arise, they change, they pass away. This is not failure. This is not punishment. This is simply the nature of all conditioned existence." The Buddha called it anicca impermanence. It is one of the 3 fundamental truths about reality, and fighting against it is like fighting against the fact that water is wet or that fire is hot. She placed the butter lotus back on the table. "Your son is growing. This is natural. Your husband is aging. This is natural. Your garden is responding to changing weather. This is natural. You are suffering because you are trying to make the impermanent permanent. And this is the cause of all our deepest pain. But I love them, Dolma whispered. I love my family. I love my life. How can I not try to preserve what I love? Loving and clinging are not the same thing. Anitsering said, you can love your son without clinging to the idea that he must stay a child in your house forever. You can love your husband without demanding that his body never change or age. You can love your garden without insisting that every season must be identical to the last. She picked up a fresh piece of butter and began shaping it. When I make these sculptures, I love them. I put care and attention into every detail. But I do not cling to them. I know they are temporary. And this knowing, this acceptance of impermanence does not diminish my love. It actually allows me to love more fully, more completely, because I am not wasting energy trying to make them into something they can never be, permanent. Dolma watched the nun's hands shape the butter, seeing how the gentleness of the touch allowed the form to emerge naturally, without force, without the desperate grip that characterized her own relationship with everything she loved. I don't know how to do that, she admitted. I don't know how to accept that everything is changing. You practice, Anitsering said. Not the practice of holding on, but the practice of letting be. Start small. Notice one thing today that is impermanent. Really notice it, not as a tragedy but as simple fact. Maybe you notice your breath changing. Maybe you notice a cloud passing across the sun. Maybe you notice how your tea cools as you drink it. Just one thing. Just one moment of recognizing, ah yes, this is changing. This is the nature of things. Over the weeks that followed, Dolma returned to the monastery many times. She sat with Anitsering, learning to make butter sculptures, learning to create beauty, knowing it would not last. The nun taught her about the 3 marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, and no self. She explained how all conditioned things, everything that arises dependent on causes and conditions, is by nature transient, in constant flux, unable to provide lasting satisfaction because it cannot stay the same. We suffer, Anitsering explained one afternoon as they worked side by side, not because things change, but because we want them not to change. The pain of loss is real. The pain of grief is real. But the suffering we add on top of that pain, the stories we tell about how things should have been different, how we failed to prevent the change, how we will never be okay again, that suffering comes from our resistance to impermanence itself. She held up a finished sculpture of a small mountain, detailed with peaks and valleys. Tomorrow this will melt. But today, it is perfect exactly as it is. When it melts, it will be perfect in its melted form. When it becomes a new sculpture, it will be perfect in that form. Each stage complete in itself, not diminished by the fact that it will change. Dolma began to practice this awareness in her daily life. She noticed how her morning tea was hot, then warm, then cool. She noticed how the sun rose and set, each day slightly different from the last. She noticed how her own thoughts and emotions arose and passed away, none of them lasting more than moments before transforming into something else. And slowly, painfully, she began to practice with the bigger changes. When her son wrote letters from Lhasa, full of excitement about his studies, she felt the old clinging arise, the wish that he would come home, the story that his leaving meant she had failed. But she recognized this as resistance to impermanence, and she let it soften. She wrote back with encouragement, loving him fully without demanding that he be anything other than what he was, a young man growing into his own life. When her husband's cough worsened and he grew thinner, she felt terror grip her heart. But she sat with Anitsering and spoke honestly about her fear of losing him. The nun did not tell her not to be afraid. Instead, she said, "Of course you are afraid. Love makes us vulnerable. But notice, are you actually losing him right now, in this moment? Or are you suffering about the future loss that has not yet happened?" Dolma realized that she was spending hours each day grieving for her husband while he was still alive, still here, still able to smile at her across the breakfast table. She was so busy anticipating loss that she was missing the time they still had. She began to practice being present with him, really present, without the overlay of fear about the future. The time became more precious, not less, because she knew it would not last forever. One evening, sitting beside her husband as he rested, watching the way the lamplight fell across his weathered face, Dolma felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there. The grief of knowing he would die someday was still there. But underneath it, she felt a strange peace. Not the peace of everything being okay, but the peace of accepting that everything changes, that this moment was exactly what it was, that her love for him did not require his permanence. Her husband opened his eyes and looked at her. "You seem different," he said quietly, softer somehow. "I am trying to love you without clinging," she said. "I am trying to be here with you exactly as you are, exactly as things are, without demanding that time stop." He smiled. "That must be very difficult." "Yes," she admitted, "but less difficult than trying to hold back the ocean with my hands." In the spring, Dolma's garden began to recover. Not because she had found some way to control the weather, but because she had stopped fighting the changes and instead had worked with them, planting different varieties, adjusting her methods to the new conditions. Her son visited briefly, taller and more confident, full of stories about his life in Lhasa. She felt the old pain of wanting him to stay, but she did not let it harden into demand. She loved him, blessed his journey, and let him go. Her husband's health stabilized, though he was weaker than before, no longer able to do the heavy work he once had. Dolma mourned the vitality he had lost, but she did not spend her energy wishing he were different than he was. She adjusted their life to accommodate his limitations, finding new ways to share the work, discovering unexpected tenderness in their changed relationship. Years later, when travelers would visit the village and admire Dolma's garden, they would sometimes ask her secret. She would smile and say, "I learned to work with change instead of against it. I learned that everything I love will change, and that this knowledge, instead of making love meaningless, makes each moment more precious than it could ever be if I thought it would last forever." Ani Tsering taught that the contemplation of impermanence is not morbid or depressing. It is liberating. When we truly understand that nothing lasts, we stop wasting energy trying to freeze time. We stop clutching at experiences, demanding that they stay exactly as they are. We stop resisting the natural flow of life through all its seasons. This does not mean we become passive or uncaring. Dolma still worked in her garden, still loved her family, still hoped and planned and built. But she held it all more lightly, knowing that whatever form her life took today would transform tomorrow, and that this transformation was not tragedy, but simply truth. Right now, everything in your life is changing. Your body is aging with each breath. Your thoughts are arising and passing away faster than you can track them. The people you love are growing and changing. The circumstances of your life are in constant flux. You cannot stop this. You have never been able to stop this. The only question is whether you will exhaust yourself fighting the inevitable or whether you will find peace in acceptance. Think of something you are trying to preserve. Maybe a relationship you want to keep exactly as it is. Maybe your own youth, your own health, your own certainty about how things should be. Notice the effort it takes to try to hold it still. Notice the tension in your body, the anxiety in your mind, the way you brace against every sign of change. What would happen if you stopped? Not stopped caring, but stopped demanding that what you love must be permanent to be valuable? What if you loved it more because it is temporary? What if you held it gently, knowing it will change? Knowing that this very impermanence makes each moment with it precious beyond measure. The Buddha's last words were, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." He did not say this to discourage his followers, but to point them toward truth. Everything arises dependent on causes and conditions. Everything that arises will pass away. This is not punishment. This is not failure. This is simply how things are. Your resistance to this truth is what causes suffering. Not the change itself, but your insistence that it should not be happening. Like trying to hold back the tide. Like demanding that autumn not follow summer. Like insisting that you can grip water so tightly it will never flow through your fingers. Feel your breath. It is different now than it was a moment ago. Feel your body. It is different now than when you lay down tonight. Feel your thoughts. They are different now than they were when this story began. Everything changing, constantly, in every moment. And you are still here, still breathing, still held by something vast enough to contain all this constant transformation. Can you soften your grip? Can you let this moment be exactly what it is, knowing it will give way to the next moment without your permission? Can you love what you love without demanding it stay frozen in time? The butter sculptures melt. The garden changes with the seasons. Children grow and leave. Bodies age and weaken. And through it all, there is something that does not change, not a thing, but a space, an awareness. A vastness that holds all the changing forms without being threatened by their transformation. Rest in that. Not in the forms that come and go, but in the space that allows them to come and go. Not in the waves, but in the ocean that gives rise to waves and receives them back again. Not in this particular breath, but in the breathing itself that continues through all the changing breaths. Let go of holding. Let go of clinging. Let go of demanding permanence from what was never designed to last. And discover the peace that comes not from making things stay the same, but from allowing them to be exactly what they are, for exactly as long as they are, before they transform into what they will become next. This is enough. This moment, just as it is, already complete, already whole, already perfect in its imperfection, already precious in its temporariness. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be preserved. Nothing needs to be different than it is. Breathe. Release. Accept. And as you do, feel how much lighter you become when you stop trying to hold back the tide. Feel how much more fully you can love when you stop demanding that what you love must never change. Feel how much peace is available when you stop fighting with the fundamental nature of reality itself. And as that acceptance settles into your bones, as your hands unclench and your heart opens to the truth of impermanence, we move deeper into the night, toward another story, another teaching, another doorway into the peace that comes not from making life stop changing, but from learning to dance with change instead of fighting it. Rest now. Let go now. Trust the changing. It has brought you this far. It will carry you forward. You do not need to control it. You only need to stop resisting it. Everything is changing, including your suffering, including your exhaustion, including your need to hold on. Let it all change. Let it all flow. Let it all transform into whatever comes next. You are safe in the changing. You always have been. In the kingdom of Bhutan, where prayer flags snap in the wind and monasteries perch on cliffs that seem to touch the clouds, there lived a painter named Pema who had forgotten she was not her thoughts. Pema was 29 years old and created thankas, the sacred paintings that adorned monastery walls and meditation rooms throughout the Himalayas. She was skilled at her craft, her brushwork precise, her understanding of iconography deep, but somewhere along the way, she had become convinced that the constant stream of thoughts flowing through her mind was who she was, that the endless commentary and judgment and planning and remembering was her truest self. Every morning, she would wake and immediately the voice would begin. You slept poorly. You have so much work to do. That painting from yesterday has a flaw in the border. You should have done it differently. What will the monks think? You are falling behind. You are not good enough. Remember when you made that mistake last month? You will probably make another one today. She believed this voice was her. She identified with every thought, every criticism, every anxious prediction. When the voice said she was inadequate, she felt inadequate. When it said she was falling behind, she felt panicked. When it replayed old mistakes, she felt shame as fresh as if the mistake had happened moments ago rather than months in the past. Her teacher, an old monk named Tenzin, who had studied in both Bhutanese and Tibetan monasteries, had watched this pattern for years. Tenzin was 73, bent from decades of prostrations, his face weathered by mountain wind and sun. He moved slowly, but with a quality of presence that made even his simplest gestures feel significant. One afternoon, when Pema came to the monastery to deliver a completed tanka, Tenzin invited her to walk with him. They climbed a path behind the monastery that led to a high meadow where yaks grazed and the sky seemed impossibly vast, stretching from horizon to horizon without interruption. Tenzin said nothing as they walked, just moved steadily upward, his breath, even despite the altitude. Pema's mind raced with its usual commentary. Why did he invite you? You probably made an error in the painting. He is disappointed. You should have checked it more carefully. What if they reached the meadow and Tenzin sat on a large stone, gesturing for Pema to sit beside him? For a long time, they simply sat in silence, watching the sky. Finally, Tenzin spoke. What do you see? Pema looked around, uncertain what answer he wanted. I see the meadow, the yaks, the mountains, the sky. Look at the sky, Tenzin said. Really look. What is happening there? Pema looked up. Clouds were moving across the blue expanse, white and grey, some wispy and transparent, others thick and heavy. They drifted with the wind, constantly changing shape, merging and separating, appearing and disappearing. Clouds, she said. Moving clouds. Yes, Tenzin nodded. And what is the sky doing about the clouds? Pema considered this. The sky is... It is just there. The clouds pass through it. Exactly, Tenzin said. The sky does not grasp at the beautiful clouds, trying to make them stay. The sky does not push away the dark clouds, trying to make them leave faster. The sky does not identify with the clouds, thinking, I am a cloudy sky, or I am a clear sky. The sky simply allows all clouds to pass through it, remaining vast and unchanged no matter what passes through. He paused, letting Pema absorb this. Your mind, he continued gently, is like the sky. Spacious, vast, fundamentally clear, and your thoughts are like clouds. They arise, they move through, they dissolve. This is natural. This is not a problem. The problem comes when you forget you are the sky and instead identify with the clouds. When you think, I am this anxious thought, or I am this self-critical voice, or I am this memory of failure. Pema felt something shift in her chest, a small opening, like a window cracking open after being sealed shut. But the thoughts feel so real, she said. So solid, so much like me. Watch the clouds, Tenzin said. Do they seem solid from here? Pema looked. The clouds appeared substantial, like objects she could almost touch. Yes. If you flew through them in your dreams, what would you find? Mist, Pema said slowly. Just mist and water vapor. They would pass right through me. Thoughts are the same, Tenzin said. From inside them, they seem solid and real and absolutely true. But when you recognize yourself as the sky, as the awareness within which thoughts arise, you see they are just mist, just weather passing through. Not solid, not permanent, not you. He stood and began walking slowly through the meadow. Pema followed. They passed near a small stream that ran through the grass, clear water moving over smooth stones. Tenzin stopped beside the stream and picked up a stick from the bank. Without ceremony, he dropped it into the flowing water. They watched as the current caught it, carried it downstream, tumbled it over rocks, moved it around a bend, and finally carried it out of sight. The stream is like your awareness, Tenzin said. Always flowing, always present, always moving. And the stick is like a thought. It appears in the stream. The stream does not become the stick. The stream does not say, I am a stick stream now. The stream simply carries the stick. And when the stick is gone, the stream continues, unchanged in its essential nature. He looked at Pema with those clear, kind eyes. Right now, what thoughts are flowing through your stream? Pema paid attention to her mind for the first time with this new perspective. I am thinking that I do not fully understand this teaching, that I am probably missing the point, that I should be having some kind of insight, but I am not. Good, Tenzin said. You see the sticks floating by. Now, what sees those thoughts? What is aware of them? Pema paused, turning her attention not to the thoughts themselves, but to whatever it was that was noticing them. She found something vast and still, something that had been there all along but which she had never noticed because she was too busy identifying with the thoughts themselves. Something spacious, she said slowly. Something that is not the thoughts. Yes, Tenzin smiled. That is your true nature. Not the clouds, but the sky. Not the stick, but the stream. Not the thoughts, but the awareness within which thoughts arise and pass away. In Dzogchen practice, we call this Rigpa the natural state of awareness itself, unconditioned, unborn, primordially pure. They walked back toward the monastery in silence. But it was a different kind of silence for Pema. She noticed thoughts arising. You still do not fully understand. You should ask more questions. You are not getting this right. But now there was space around them. She could see them as thoughts, as clouds passing through, rather than as truth, rather than as her. Over the weeks that followed, Pema practiced this recognition. Every morning, instead of immediately believing the stream of criticism and anxiety that arose with waking, she would pause. She would recognize, these are thoughts. I am the awareness within which thoughts arise. I am the sky, not the clouds. It was not easy. The habit of identification was strong. 1,000 times a day, she would forget and become lost in thoughts, believing them completely. But then she would remember, sometimes through Tenzin's teachings, sometimes through her own growing familiarity with the spacious awareness beneath the thoughts, and she would relax back into knowing herself as the sky. One morning while painting, Pema made an error. Her hand slipped, and a line of gold paint went where it should not have gone. Immediately, the old voice arose. You are so clumsy. This painting is ruined. You will have to start over. Everyone will see you are not skilled. You are a failure. But this time, instead of identifying with these thoughts, instead of becoming them, Pema recognized them as weather passing through. She observed them with interest, as one might observe interesting cloud formations. Oh, there is the self-criticism cloud. There is the catastrophizing cloud. There is the shame cloud. And beneath the clouds, she felt the vast, spacious awareness that was not touched by them. The awareness that could hold both the error and the criticism without being defined by either. From this space, she could simply address the practical reality. She had made an error. She could fix it or work around it. No drama necessary. No identity crisis required. She continued painting, and the thoughts continued arising. They did not stop just because she stopped identifying with them, but they had lost their power to define her, to convince her they were truth rather than just mental weather. Another time, Pema found herself in a familiar spiral of worry about the future. What if you cannot make enough money from painting? What if you run out of commissions? What if you end up poor and alone? The thoughts created vivid scenarios, detailed predictions, elaborate stories about everything that could go wrong. She noticed herself beginning to contract around these thoughts, beginning to believe them. But then she remembered the sky. She recognized, these are thoughts about the future, not the actual future, which has not happened, not reality, which is this moment right now. Just thoughts, just clouds of worry drifting through the spacious sky of awareness. She did not try to make the thoughts go away. She did not fight them or suppress them. She simply recognized them for what they were, mental activity, not truth. And in that recognition, they lost their power to create suffering. The thoughts continued. The worries still arose, but there was space around them now. Room to breathe, room to see that worrying about the future was different from actually experiencing difficulty. Room to choose how to respond, perhaps by taking practical action, perhaps by simply returning to the present moment where everything was actually okay. Years later, when Pema became known not just for her skill as a painter, but for her peaceful presence, students would sometimes ask how she remained so calm despite life's difficulties. She would tell them about Tenzin and the sky, about clouds and streams and sticks, about the difference between awareness and the contents of awareness. The thoughts will come, she would say. They have always come. They will always come. Anxious thoughts, angry thoughts, sad thoughts, joyful thoughts. All of them just weather passing through. The question is not how to have no thoughts. That is impossible while we are alive. The question is, do you know yourself as the sky or as the clouds, as the stream or as the stick? Some students understood immediately. Others took years, as Pema had. But she continued to point, as Tenzin had pointed for her, toward the spacious awareness that was always already present, waiting to be recognized beneath the constant stream of mental activity. In Tibetan Buddhist teachings, particularly in Dzogchen and Mahamudra practices, this recognition of awareness itself, this knowing yourself as the sky rather than the clouds, is considered the heart of the path. Not something you create through effort, but something you recognize as already present. Not something you achieve in the future, but something you notice right now. The thinking mind will tell you this cannot be true, that you cannot be aware without identifying with thoughts, that spaciousness is just another concept. But this is just another thought, another cloud passing through. The awareness that recognizes this is just a thought is itself the sky, already free, already spacious, already at peace. Right now, notice what you are thinking. Do not try to stop the thoughts. Do not judge them as good or bad. Simply notice them arising. There might be thoughts about this teaching, thoughts about your day tomorrow, thoughts about the past, thoughts about whether you are understanding this correctly. Now notice, what is noticing those thoughts? What is aware of them? This noticing, this awareness itself, it is not another thought. It is not another cloud. It is the sky within which all thoughts arise and pass away. You are not your anxious thoughts. You are the awareness within which anxiety arises and dissolves. You are not your self-critical thoughts. You are the spacious presence that can observe self-criticism without being defined by it. You are not your sad thoughts, your angry thoughts, your confused thoughts. You are the vast, clear awareness that can hold all of these experiences without being diminished by any of them. This does not mean thoughts stop. It does not mean you achieve some blank, empty state. Clouds continue to move across the sky. Sticks continue to float down the stream. Thoughts continue to arise in awareness. But when you know yourself as the sky, as the stream, as the awareness itself, the thoughts lose their power to define you, to imprison you, to convince you that you are small and limited and exactly as broken as your worst thoughts say you are. Feel into this right now. Below the thinking, below the constant commentary, there is something vast and still and perfectly at peace. Not blank, not empty in a scary way, but spacious, like the sky is spacious, able to hold everything without being overwhelmed by anything. You do not need to create this spaciousness. You do not need to achieve it through years of practice. You only need to recognize it. It is already here. It has always been here. It is what you actually are beneath all the identification with passing thoughts. Let your attention rest not in the thoughts, but in the awareness of thoughts. Not in the clouds, but in the sky. Not in the stick, but in the stream. Feel how much more room there is here. How much less solid everything becomes when you recognize you are not the weather passing through, but the space within which all weather is allowed to pass. The self-critical voice might arise, saying, "This is stupid." You are not really spacious awareness. You are just a person with problems. Fine. Let that be another cloud. Notice it. Watch it move through. To recognize it as just another thought arising in the vast sky of your true nature. The anxious voice might arise, saying, "But what about all the real problems in my life? This philosophy does not solve anything." Fine. Let that be another stick floating by. Notice it. Let the stream carry it. Recognize that awareness itself is not diminished by the presence of anxiety any more than the sky is diminished by the presence of storm clouds. Everything can be here. All thoughts, all emotions, all experiences. The spacious awareness you truly are is large enough to hold it all without needing to push anything away, without needing to cling to anything, without needing to identify with any of it as me or mine. This is freedom. Not freedom from thoughts, but freedom from the belief that you are your thoughts. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom from the conviction that difficulty defines who you are. Not freedom from clouds, but recognition that you are the sky vast, open, unchanging in your essential nature, no matter what weather passes through. Breathe into this spaciousness now. Feel how much room there is. How much peace is available when you stop defending the small, thought-created sense of self and recognize the vast awareness that you have always been. And as that recognition deepens, as you begin to taste what it feels like to rest as the sky rather than struggling as the clouds, we move toward the final teaching of this night, toward the deepest letting go, toward the recognition that even this understanding can be released, that even the search for peace can dissolve into the peace that has been here all along, waiting patiently beneath everything you thought you needed to become. Rest now as the sky, vast, open, unchanged by anything that passes through. Not empty, but spaciously full. Not blank, but alive with awareness itself. You are not your thoughts. You have never been your thoughts. You are the vast, clear awareness within which all thoughts arise and dissolve, like clouds passing through the infinite sky. This is what you are. This is what you have always been. This is what you can never stop being, no matter how many thoughts try to convince you otherwise. Rest here. Rest as this. Rest in the spaciousness that is your true nature. The night holds you. The awareness holds all experience. You are held, and you are the holding itself. Nothing more is needed. You are already home. Take a long, slow breath and feel how spacious you have become. The clouds of thought drift across your awareness, and you remain vast, untouched, at peace. Let your shoulders melt downward, releasing any last holding. Let your jaw soften completely. Let your hands open like flowers that have remembered they were never meant to grip. There is nowhere to go from here. No higher teaching to reach. No deeper understanding to achieve. You have recognized what you always were beneath all the searching. And now, as the night deepens and sleep draws near, we arrive at the final story, the quietest one, the one that asks nothing of you except that you allow yourself to dissolve into rest, to forget even these teachings, to trust that wisdom works its transformation beneath the level of conscious knowing. One last story waits, and then only sleep, only rest, only peace. Let yourself drift now. The final story will find you, even if you have already begun to dream, in a quiet corner of Japan, in a time that feels both long ago and somehow always present. There lived an old woman named Hana who had learned the art of doing nothing. This was not laziness. This was not the nothing of avoidance or escape. This was the nothing that remains when all the doing has been done, when all the striving has exhausted itself, when the heart finally remembers that it was never meant to carry the weight of the entire world. Hana was 87 years old. She lived alone in a small house near a forest where bamboo grew thick and green, swaying with every breeze, making sounds like water, like breathing, like the earth itself, whispering secrets to those patient enough to listen. She had lived a full life, married young, raised children, buried a husband, worked in the fields, knew both joy and sorrow in equal measure. But now, in these final years, she had discovered something she wished she had known earlier, that the sweetest moments are the ones where nothing needs to happen, nothing needs to be fixed, nothing needs to be understood. Most mornings, she would wake before dawn and sit on her porch, wrapped in a thick quilt her daughter had made, watching the darkness soften into grey, then blue, then gold. She did not meditate in any formal sense. She did not count breaths or contemplate koans or try to achieve anything at all. She simply sat, feeling the cool air on her face, listening to the bamboo rustle, watching the world emerge from night into day. Her neighbors thought her very wise, though she laughed at this. "I am not wise," she would say. "I have simply become very good at sitting still." But there was wisdom in this, though Hana herself did not claim it. She had learned that most of what people call problems are simply life happening, weather passing through, seasons changing as seasons do. She had learned that the frantic doing that fills most lives is often just a way of avoiding the uncomfortable peace that lives beneath all the activity. One autumn morning, a young woman from the village came to visit Hana. The young woman, her name was Keiko, was 26 and deeply troubled, though she struggled to name exactly what troubled her. She felt restless, anxious, as though she was supposed to be doing something important but could not figure out what. Hana invited her to sit on the porch. She poured tea from a pot that had been her grandmother's, the ceramic smooth and warm in her wrinkled hands. They sat in silence for a long time, just drinking tea, watching the morning light filter through the bamboo. Finally, Keiko spoke. "Grandmother Hana, how do you find peace? Everyone says you are the most peaceful person in the village. What is your secret?" Hana smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "I will tell you a secret, but you may not like it." "Please," Keiko said. "There is nothing to find," Hana said, simply. "Peace is not something you discover at the end of a long search. It is what remains when you stop searching." Keiko frowned, trying to understand. Hana could see the young woman's mind working, trying to turn this into a technique, a method, something she could do. "Watch the bamboo," Hana said, gesturing to the forest edge where bamboo swayed gently in the morning breeze. They watched together. The bamboo moved, constant and rhythmic, never still, never struggling, just moving with whatever moved it. "The bamboo is not trying to be peaceful," Hana said quietly. "It is not practicing stillness or cultivating tranquility. It simply moves when the wind moves it and is still when the wind is still. It does not think about whether it is doing this correctly. It just does what bamboo does." She poured more tea for both of them. The steam rose and dissipated. A bird called from somewhere deep in the forest. "You are like the bamboo," Hana continued. "But you have forgotten this. You think you must figure out how to be at peace, what to do to become peaceful, what to achieve to finally feel okay. But peace is not something you create through doing. It is what you already are when you stop trying to be anything else." Keiko felt tears welling in her eyes, though she did not fully understand why. "But I feel so unfinished, like I am supposed to be more than I am." Hana reached over and took Keiko's hand. Her touch was warm and dry, the skin papery with age, but the grip surprisingly strong. "You are not unfinished," she said gently. "You are like a flower that has bloomed but does not recognize its own blooming because it is too busy worrying about whether it bloomed correctly, whether its petals are the right shape, whether other flowers bloomed better. The blooming is already complete. You are already whole. You only need to stop long enough to notice." They sat together through the morning, sometimes talking, often silent. Hana did not give Keiko practices or techniques or instructions. She simply sat with her, demonstrating through her own presence what it looked like to be at ease with life exactly as it was. When Keiko finally left, she felt different, though she could not have explained how. Lighter, perhaps. Less burdened by the unnamed urgency that usually drove her through her days. That evening, Hana sat on her porch again, watching the sun set behind the mountains. The sky turned orange, then pink, then deep purple. Stars began to emerge, one by one, like small promises being kept. She thought about all the years of her life, all the doing and striving and worrying and trying. She thought about how much energy she had spent trying to make things different than they were, trying to control outcomes, trying to become someone other than who she already was. And she thought about these recent years, these quiet years, where she had finally learned to simply be, not be peaceful, not be wise, not be anything in particular. Just be, like the bamboo, like the stars, like everything that exists without needing to justify its existence or prove its worth, or become anything other than what it already is. A cool breeze moved through the forest. The bamboo swayed. The stars grew brighter as the sky darkened. Hana pulled her quilt closer and felt a deep contentment that had nothing to do with her circumstances and everything to do with finally being willing to stop. Stop trying to understand everything. Stop trying to fix everything. Stop trying to become something other than what she already was. Just stop. Just be. Just this moment. Just this breath. Just this infinite, ordinary, miraculous present that asked nothing of her except that she allow it to be exactly what it was. She sat until the night grew late and cold. Then she went inside, lay down on her futon, and slept the deep, dreamless sleep of someone who has finally put down every burden, even the burden of trying to be free. In the morning, she would wake and sit on the porch again. And the morning after that, and the morning after that, not practicing anything, not achieving anything, not becoming anything, just sitting, just breathing, just allowing life to live itself through her without resistance, without grasping, without the exhausting effort of trying to make this moment into something other than what it already was. Just this, just now, just peace. There is nothing more to understand, nothing more to figure out, nothing more to become. All the teachings of this night have pointed to one simple truth. You are already whole. You are already complete. You are already at peace beneath all the layers of thinking that tell you otherwise. The tea has been poured. The bamboo sways. The stars have emerged. And you, like Hana, can finally stop. Stop trying to get somewhere. Stop trying to become someone. Stop trying to fix what you have decided is broken about you. Stop trying to understand this moment and just feel it instead. Feel the surface beneath you, solid and supportive. Feel the blanket's weight, warm and soft. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs without your effort, without your control, without your needing to do anything at all. You are being breathed You are being lived. You are being held by something so vast and gentle that it never even occurred to you to notice it because it has been there every single moment of your entire life. Never wavering, never leaving, never asking anything in return. Let your body grow heavy now. Let your muscles release their holding, their vigilance, their readiness. There is nothing to be ready for. There is nowhere to go. There is no one you need to be. Not even someone who is peaceful or spiritual or enlightened. Just you. Just this. Just the simple fact of existing, breathing, being held by the night. The stories you have heard tonight about Tomoe and her tea, about Min and his worries, about Nalini and her arrows, about Wei and his grasping, about Sunim and her falling, about Dolma and her changes, about Pema and her clouds, about Hana and her bamboo. These stories are not meant to be remembered. They are not meant to be studied or analyzed or turned into techniques. They are meant to dissolve like sugar in water, sweetening the whole without leaving traces of themselves behind. They are meant to work on you beneath the level of conscious thought, in that deep place where transformation happens without your needing to understand it, or control it, or even notice it occurring. So let them go now. Let the teachings dissolve. Let the insights fade. Let everything you think you learned tonight melt away into the darkness, into the forgetting, into the vast spaciousness that holds all learning and all forgetting with equal tenderness. You do not need to remember to be whole. You do not need to remember to be at peace. You do not need to remember anything at all. The body remembers. The heart remembers. The deep wisdom beneath all words remembers. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Feel your eyelids growing heavy, if they have not closed already. Feel the gentle pull of sleep, like the tide pulling you out into the vast ocean of rest. Do not resist it. Do not try to stay awake to hear the end. There is no end. There is only this continuous dissolving into peace. The bamboo sways in the darkness. The stars shine without effort. The earth turns without your permission. And you are held. You are safe. You are exactly where you need to be. Nothing more is required. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is even possible than what is already here, already complete, already perfect in its imperfection. Let go now. Let go of trying. Let go of understanding. Let go of holding yourself together. Let go of staying awake. Let go of everything, everything, everything. Just this breath, just this softening, just this gentle, inevitable dissolving into rest. The night receives you. Sleep receives you. Peace receives you. You are home. You have always been home. You can stop searching now. Rest. Dissolve. Forget. Let the wisdom work in silence. Let the healing happen in sleep. Let yourself be held without needing to know who is holding you, or how, or why. Just held. Just safe. Just perfectly, completely, finally at rest. The bamboo sways. The stars shine. And you are already free. You have always been free. You can sleep now. You can rest now. You can let go now. Everything is already complete. Nothing more is needed. Just this. Just peace. Just sleep. And so we come to the end of our journey through this long night. Though perhaps you are already dreaming, already drifting in that space between waking and sleep, where wisdom dissolves into rest and rest dissolves into healing. We have traveled together through temples in Kyoto and mountains in Vietnam, through Sri Lankan forests and Chinese valleys, through Korean hermitages and Tibetan highlands, through Bhutanese meadows and Japanese bamboo groves. We have met teachers who offered us tea and questions, who showed us where we were holding too tightly, who pointed toward the peace that lives beneath all our endless thinking. But none of these teachers, none of these stories, none of these teachings can give you what you do not already possess. They can only point toward what has been here all along, waiting patiently for you to notice that you are whole, you are held, you are enough, exactly as you are. In the morning, you may notice something has shifted. Perhaps the world feels a little softer. Perhaps you catch yourself gripping less tightly. Perhaps you notice the space between your thoughts. Perhaps nothing changes at all in any way you can name, and yet something deep within you has been touched, has been reminded, has been called home. These moments of recognition, these gentle openings, they are not achievements. They are not something you earn through good practice or correct understanding. They are simply what naturally emerges when you finally allow yourself to rest. So take this rest as a gift. Take this sleep as sacred. Take this peace as your birthright, not something you must earn, but something you can finally, gratefully receive. The wisdom of the Buddha, the compassion of bodhisattvas, the clarity of countless teachers across thousands of years, all of it distills into this one simple invitation. Stop. Breathe. Be. You are safe. You are held. You are loved by the vastness that gives rise to all things and receives all things back into itself with infinite tenderness. If this video served you, a quiet like or subscribe helps others find this sanctuary. But even this does not matter tonight. Tonight, nothing matters except your rest, your peace, your gentle dissolving into sleep. May you rest deeply. May you wake refreshed. May you carry some small measure of this peace into your waking life, remembering that it is always here, always available, always waiting beneath the surface of your busy days. Thank you for walking this path with me tonight. Thank you for giving yourself this gift of rest and wisdom intertwined. Sleep well, dear traveler. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. The night holds you. The darkness blesses you. And peace, peace, peace is your true nature, now and always. Good night.